Welcome to Late Night Story. When the world goes silent and shadows stretch longer, some stories awaken, whispered only to those still awake. So put on your headphones, turn down the lights, and let me guide you through the quiet hours. If you're listening alone, you're exactly where you need to be. If everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world, don't forget to subscribe before you drift too far into the dark.
Story 1. Warning. Check your backseat. I wasn't worried about the message when it first popped up. It's one of those things they put in these days to make sure no one leaves a child in a hot car, I guess. It hadn't ever shown me that warning before, but I figured maybe a passenger had left a purse on the floor or something and it was detecting the weight. There wasn't anything there, though. I looked under the seats and everything. Even ran my hand along the back edge to see if there was a wallet or a phone stuck in a crack. I didn't think that sort of thing would set off the alarm, but the car was still fairly new, so I couldn't be sure. Regardless, nothing was there. I'd forgotten about it by the end of the next day, honestly. But when I pulled into my driveway and turned off the car, there it was again on my dashboard. I checked the back seat again. Still nothing. I hadn't had any messages from passengers looking for any lost items either. Maybe this was just a thing the car did, just a general warning to remind drivers to check the back seat every time they got out. If so, it felt counterproductive. If the warning was there every time, people were bound to start ignoring it. It would just become part of the background. Also, I was sure that the car hadn't been doing this in the first several months I'd had it. On the other hand, this was the sort of change they might have pushed through a software update. There could have been some new legislation, some lobbying group pushing to have this warning on permanently, like the meaningless parental advisory stickers on music. I looked online that night, searching through car forums and news posts for any mention of this warning. I couldn't find any indication that it was supposed to be happening every time I turned the car off. In fact, it didn't seem to be showing up for anyone else. This problem was only in my car. Clearly it was just a bad sensor. It was probably still under warranty. But in order to get it fixed, I'd still have to leave it at the dealership for a day, and the warranty wasn't going to pay my lost income for the day off. I told myself I could just ignore it. It was just a single line of text. I'd stop noticing it in no time. I was wrong. Every time I turned the car off, that message glared at me like a dire omen. I found myself obsessively checking the back seat every time I got out, even though I knew I'd find nothing. I vacuumed the car until not so much as a crumb remained. I checked the seatbelt latches. Everything was perfect, but the warning still appeared. I tried ignoring it. I averted my eyes when I turned the car off, but I could feel it glowing from the deactivated dash. See the phantom words printed across the darkness of my eyelids. I walked away from the car without looking in the back, telling myself that it was a waste of time and there was nothing to find. I knew I was right, of course, but I found myself wide awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling and thinking, what if I ended up kneeling in the street in my pajamas with my phone flashlight on, looking under the seats for something I knew wouldn't be there. The back seat was as empty as always. The warning haunted me constantly. I only saw it when I stopped the car, but I knew it was always coming. I began to watch the back seat constantly, eyes flicking to the rear view mirror more than was safe or reasonable. My passengers noticed. My rating began to dip, with notes marking concerns about attentiveness to the road. My tips suffered as well. Finally, I bit the bullet and took the car in to get the sensor fixed. The warning mocked me as I parked in the lot, daring me to go inside without looking. I wanted to. I knew there was nothing there. But if I claimed there was a sensor issue and they found a bag or a box or some other physical object sitting back there, I'd look like I was too dumb to have just checked the back seat. I knew I had checked it. I had checked it 1,000 times. But I looked once more just to be sure. I explained my problem to the man at the counter. He typed some notes into his computer and said, "Gonna be a few hours until we can get you in." "That's fine," I said. "I'll wait." "You sure you don't have?" he began. I cut him off more emphatically than I intended. "There is nothing in the back seat. I have looked." All right, he said, raising his hands to placate me. Just trying to save you some time in case. I went to look again after that. I really couldn't have stood being wrong at that point. It was empty. It was always empty. I knew every crevice of that back seat now. There was nothing there. I sat in the waiting room drinking coffee and playing on my phone. I was inexplicably nervous. I couldn't figure out why. It was just a sensor issue. They would find it and fix it. The problem would go away. It was crazy that I'd waited this long, that I'd let it get to me this much. Finally, they called me back up to the front. Well, we can't find anything wrong with your car, the mechanic said. What do you mean? There's absolutely nothing in the back seat. I have made very sure of that. Back seat's clean as a whistle, sure. We can't get that warning to turn on, either, not without someone in the back seat. It cuts on like it's supposed with a person back there, but if it's just a driver, it doesn't show. My expression must have been somewhere between disbelief and rage. The mechanic took a step back. Look, I'll come show you. I calmed myself and followed him out to the garage. He turned on the car while I watched through the window. He let it run for a moment, then turned it off. No message appeared. See, he said, we can replace the part if you want. But since we can't find an issue, it's not going to be covered under warranty. And we got to take the entire backseat out to do it. So there's going to be a decent labor fee. I ignored him and got into the car. I turned it on and then, with trepidation, turned it back off. For the first time in weeks, no warning appeared. The rush of relief I felt was incredible. I turned the car on and off again several more times. There was no message. The warning was gone. You happy? The mechanic asked. Unbelievably, I said. He shrugged. Wish they were all this easy. I drove home feeling like I was floating. I hadn't realized how much tension I had been carrying, or how much my car had begun to feel like a prison. The road was broad and open. The day was beautiful. I was free. In my peripheral vision, a light flickered. Something on the passenger side of the car had blinked out. A little orange light I could not remember ever having paid attention to before. I stared sharply at it now. Tried to figure out what had been illuminated. It blinked briefly again, on just long enough for me to read it. Passenger airbag off. It stayed on whenever there was no one in the front passenger seat. It was off now. The final short blink could have been anything. It could have been an LED failing, a sensor breaking, any of 1,000 electrical glitches, or it could have been something settling itself into the passenger seat. I pulled over to the side of the road. I left the car running when I got out. I did not look back as I walked away. There was no point. I knew there was nothing in the back seat anymore. I never went back to the car. The police called a few days later. They'd found my vehicle, they said. Some kids had taken out joyriding. It was in bad shape. So were the kids. They were reviewing the dash cam footage. But did I want a copy for my insurance? I shouldn't have watched it. I knew that before I ever put the thumb drive in my computer. But I had to know. They were laughing at first, whooping and hollering as they sped away down the street, all clearly having fun at first. Pretty soon, though, one of them starts cautioning the driver to slow down. The panic starts then, screaming that the pedals won't work, the wheel won't turn, the doors won't open. All the while, the speed on the display is creeping higher and higher. It ends as you'd expect. I'm sure there'll be questions about why I left my car with the keys in it, whether I knew something was wrong. I suppose a clean bill of health I got from the dealership. That day will be useful in proving my innocence. I'm not worried about that right now, though. My Ring doorbell is notifying me that there's someone on my front porch, but the camera shows nothing at all. Story 2. I was a Catholic priest, and one disturbing confession haunts me to this day. Before you say it, there's no risk of excommunication for breaking the sacramental seal. I left the church of my own volition in 2013, so I will gladly reveal this unholy confession to you. Besides, I answer first to God, and this sinner was no child of him. The greatest fright of my life began 12 years ago when an unassuming note was delivered to the rectory. Tonight, 7 p.m., Wait in your confessional. Do not come out. Do not look at me. In retrospect, something was very off about that. But this wasn't the first time a guilty soul had concealed his or her identity before confessing. Usually, however, penitents would perhaps don a shawl or tinted glasses. This was new. He must be unbelievably riddled with shame. I decided, though I did not judge. After all, I still innocently believed I'd heard every crime before: adultery, abuse, and even murder, from a convict who had already served his time but sought to repent. So I granted him that. I have granted absolution to the greatest of sinners, but not this man. At 7 o'clock, I sat and waited in my confessional, a shambly wooden booth with a rotting lattice divider, affording no pretense of discretion or separation between the priest and penitent during the sacrament of penance. Donations from my fellow Irishmen and Irish women had kept the lights on, but the church was falling into disrepair. Nevertheless, red drapes shielded the booth doorways. As I listened to Mystery Note Deliverer stride up the aisle, I hoped he would be appreciative for those curtains veiling his approach from my gaze. Wait in your confessional. Do not come out. Do not look at me. I was respecting his wishes, was not questioning them nearly as much as would have been apposite. The man opened his curtain, and I kept my eyes down. I glimpsed only the outline of a figure in the light of the church before he drew shut the red fabric behind him. Darkness returned. Not that the candles had provided much illumination anyway, and night had fallen beyond the stained glass windows. "Good evening, Father," said the man. "Good evening, my child," I replied. "Are you looking away?" "Yes, my child. What brings you here today?" "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. This is my first confession. If I'd been a cynical man back then, I would have paid greater attention to the derision and lack of sincerity in his voice. If you feel able, confess." The man exhaled deeply. "I have hurt those who have sinned, Father, and that is my sin." There followed a pause, so I pressed, "Are you comfortable to tell me more?" "I am very comfortable, Father. Are you?" Now there was more than derision in his voice. There was a bladed edge, which left my arms tingling and brought about my first twinge of fear. "Do not worry about me, my child," I said. "I am here not to judge, but to absolve you. Please, if you feel able, continue." "Oh, that's so grand of you, Father." There was a sardonic tone again. "Well, you see, my sin is that I'm not like you, holy man. I don't seek sinners to absolve them, and I don't hurt them as some sort of retributive justice. No, I'm a taker, Father. I eat shame. Heavens, does it taste good? Don't you think so?" He was clearly an unwell man, but not the first to have entered my booth. I think you have done the right thing by coming here today. I would like to pray for you. Oh my God, help your child." "I'm not his child," said the man coldly. There was again that extra blade slashing my arms. Only, this time it felt like more than a psychological phenomenon. I examined my skin frantically, but found no marks, found no knife working through me. None of this was right. For the first time in my life, I did not feel God's presence in that church. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I eventually continued, voice fragile as I wrestled with the wrongness of the man on the other side of my booth. "With God's grace, I pray you find penance, absolution, and a life without sin. Amen. But I don't want absolution, Father. I'm confessing for the crack of it, don't you know? Most of all, I don't want to stop hurting sinners. Sinners like you." That unseen knife tore into me again, and I looked down a second time. That twinge of fear blossomed into terror, the likes of which I have never felt before. Terror so paralyzing that I managed not even a whimper. The blade was not imaginary. A growing pool of blood stained the inner sleeves of my black cassock, and I rolled them up to reveal gashes running the length of my forearms. Gashes still being cut by that spectral weaponry. I had long believed in miracles, but this was an abomination. The man cried out with laughter. "Oh, absolution. I feel it in me bones. Grand, so it is. Thanks be to God. Here, what about you, Father? Have you confessed?" That question cut nearly as sharp as the blade, and I ignored it, clawing at my bleeding arms, as fresh wounds were forged by that invisible blade. I fell to my knees and considered lifting my head to look up at the lattices. Considered looking at the... I wouldn't be doing that if I were you, Father, warned the man, blessed or cursed with psychic perception. What are you, the devil? No devil here, Father. No God. Nothing and no one to absolve you. I told you, that's not what I do. Then what do you do? I eat shame, he growled. Now confess, or I should make things so much more terrible for you. Lifting my bloody hands to cover my eyes, I gave the man what he wanted. Bless me, oh my God, for I have sinned. I began. I was 8 years old. Riona was my first love, but she liked Finley, not me. I knew as much when he broke his arm, and she drew a love heart on his plaster cast. I was envious, so I spread a rumor that Riona had kissed Finley behind a bicycle shed. Gossip was a dangerous thing in my small village. She and her family had to move away because folks started treating him cruelly. They called her the worst things. Little Hure, the man said, and Finley was a Hure fucker. How do you know that? This penitent wasn't some former classmate of mine. I knew that from the wounds supernaturally inflicted on my arms. I whispered, "Who are you?" Ask me that once more, Father, and I'll pull back that red curtain to show you. But why I won't like that? Trust me, it's for your sake. Finish the story. I blubbered. I always blamed Connor and Sean for what came next. They said Finley needed to be put in his place for taking your girl. Not that she'd ever been mine. Connor told Finley it was a shame his arm had healed because injuries win the girls. So my two friends took their penknives and started cutting into both his arms. Cutting and cutting and cutting whilst he begged them to stop. And what did you do, Father? I was becoming too lightheaded to speak or even cry. I absolved myself of blame. I wasn't holding the knife, after all, but I still let them do what they did, and maybe even enjoyed it because I hated Finley. That's my greatest sin. At long last, the gashing of my flesh ceased. I would have leapt for joy, but I was too weak, too close to losing consciousness. Despite all that, I think I'm going to die anyway, I lamented. The man laughed. Your sin and guilt drove you to become a holy man, didn't it? Look at you, Father, a sinner cleansing sinners. We are all sinners. I absolve thee, sinner. The man mocked. I'll be leaving now. Blessed be you, Father, for tonight's meal. Your guilt, your delectable disgrace. It was divine. Now, I pray you tend to your wounds quickly, should the Lord see fit. I heard his curtain draw back as I lay in a fetal position, eyeing the bottom of my own red curtain. A slither of light was visible at one side, cut off momentarily by a shade cast from the figure exiting the booth. I was tempted once more to peek. No, the man advised. Farewell. As he walked away, all seemed safe. I fumbled the phone in my trouser pocket, below the cassock, to call an ambulance. But there was one final statement, one final terror. Until we meet again, Father. Story 3. 20 years ago, my grandma wanted me to kill my baby sister. Now I know the truth. My grandma moved in with us when my sister was 3 months old. She was only 72, but was very frail with terrible arthritis and osteoporosis. She had taken a nasty tumble in her 2-story flat, which gave my mother quite a fright. And so it was decided she could not live on her own anymore. I was thrilled. I had been an only child until I was 9, and so when my sister was born, it was a real shock to my little world. My grandma seemed to be the only one who noticed how badly this affected me, and so when she came to live with us, she poured all her attention on me. At first, it was everything I needed, a loving adult in my life who cared about more than just a tiny, wailing baby who had taken my parents away from me. Before my grandma's arthritis had gotten too bad, her fingers became bony and gnarled. She'd been a wonderful knitter. She wore the colorful, cozy sweaters with deep pockets she had knitted. And ever since I could remember, whenever I saw her, she'd call me over and say in a sing-song voice, "There's something in my pocket for you." and she'd smile mischievously and angle her hip for me to reach into her pocket. And I'd find a piece of candy, and she'd wink, and I'd smile up at her. On the day she arrived to live with us, this was the first thing she did. She barely nodded in my baby sister's direction as I shoveled a candy bar into my mouth. For the first few weeks, everything was as normal as could be. It felt like my sister cried nonstop, and my parents fussed over her nonstop. But with my grandma there to fuss over me, I stopped caring so much. The first time something strange happened. At the time, I wasn't even sure something strange had happened. I was sitting in the living room with my grandma. She had been telling me stories of when she had been my age, and I was absolutely enthralled. I had been told that I was very much like my grandma when she was a little girl, and so I imagined myself in her stories, and it made me feel even closer to her. My mother came into the room, holding the baby, who wasn't crying for a change, and asked if I'd like to hold her. My mom would do this from time to time in an effort to push a closeness between me and my sister that I simply wasn't interested in. Go on, sit next to Grandma and I'll put her on your lap. I let out a big sigh, but decided not to argue for the sake of getting it over and done with so it could get back to just me and Grandma. I plunked down next to her, and my mom put my sister on my lap and told us not to move as she rushed to get the camera. Even though I was only 9 at the time, there wasn't much of a height difference between my grandma and I, mostly due to my grandma's severely curved spine. And so her mouth was right next to my ear. Her breathing started to get ragged, and when I turned to look at her, she was staring down at my sister with the strangest look in her eyes. "Give her a squeeze," she said very softly. I wasn't really holding my sister as much as I was sitting stiffly with her across my lap. So I shifted and adjusted my arms into a bit more of an embrace. My grandma's breathing got more and more uneven. "Squeeze her," she said in an excited whisper. She was positively vibrating next to me, her voice getting louder as she repeated, "Squeeze her, squeeze her, squeeze her." She opened and closed her crooked, talon-like hands in anticipation. I had never seen her like this, and it scared me. And this is the part one can't be sure because my mom came back into the room with the camera poised to take a picture. But I swear I heard my grandma say, "Squish it," in an awful, guttural moan before the flash went off. I didn't give much thought to this incident, and after a while it faded out of thoughts altogether. It seemed quite odd to me that my grandma really didn't seem to want anything to do with sister. But I wasn't going to question it, not since it meant I got all her attention. My parents didn't notice at all. At least they didn't push her to hold the baby, or join in on bath times, or read her a story the same way they did with me. After a while, things in the house settled into a routine where I'd spend all my time with my grandma, and my parents would spend all their time with my sister. One night, a few months after my grandma came to live with us, I woke up in the middle of the night. Now, no one gets much sleep in a house with a baby in it, but I had gotten pretty used to it by then, and I even managed to sleep through my sister's wailing. But this isn't what woke me up. A floorboard had creaked outside my door. I listened and heard another soft creak. Someone was walking down the hallway, trying not to make a noise. The creaking stopped, and I could tell someone was standing outside my sister's room, which was across from mine, and a little ways down. I listened, thinking it was likely one of my parents checking on my sister, but there were no more sounds. I got out of bed to see who it was and what they were doing. The hallway was darker than my dimly nightlight lit room, and so it took me a while to adjust the darkness, but when I did, I saw the crouched and crooked form of my grandma just standing outside the closed door. She wasn't moving, but I could hear her ragged, uneven breathing. I must have made a noise because she whipped her head around to see me standing half in my doorway, and then scuttled away faster than I had ever seen her move before past me in the hallway and back into her own room. I felt a mixture of fear and jealousy, unsure what had just happened, a subconscious knowing that it wasn't right, but also a bit put out that my grandma was paying attention to my sister after all. It didn't help that she started doing this every night after that. I'd hear her soft, deliberately quiet footsteps go past my door, and then stop outside my sister's. I don't know how long she'd stay there, because I never heard the footsteps go past my door again. As strange as it was, things would always be completely normal in the morning again. My grandma would be her usual warm and affectionate self. and we'd pick up on wherever the day before story had left off. One day, a few weeks into my grandma coming to live with us, I was sitting with her in her room. I remember she sat in an armchair, basking in the warm rays of afternoon sun. I was going through her jeweler box, trying on her pearls and clip-on earrings. It would have been a wonderful memory if not for what happened next. My mother came in with the baby. She moaned at me for making a mess of Grandma's things and asked me to watch my sister for 5 minutes while she ran over to the neighbors. I groaned and reluctantly agreed. My baby sister crawled over to me and smiled. I just scowled at her as she tried to grab the box away from me. It fell out of my hands and all the jewelry scattered across the floor. "No, Emma," I cried. She just kept smiling, and I felt tears prickling my eyes. Angry, frustrated tears over a ruined moment with my grandma. I felt a small nudge on my back and turned to see my grandma on her hands and knees behind me, her gnarled frame making the position look so wrong as her elbows bent too far backwards and her hunchback seemingly arched into impossible propositions. She had the same manic smile on her face, her eyes wild and bulging. My grandma reached out her hand, closed around something. She slowly opened her knotted fingers to reveal a large, ornate brooch and motioned for me to take it. Her smile never faded, and thick, discolored drool started dripping from the sides of her mouth. I stared at her in shock and disgust. Again, she motioned for me to take the brooch, inching her hand closer. "Emma," my grandma said in a guttural whisper, her voice deeper and more gravelly than it had ever been. For Emma, in dismay, I took it from her, keeping my eyes on hers. She began bouncing on her hands in childlike excitement. The pin, she rasped and pointed a bony finger at the baby. Prick her in the eye." I stared open-mouthed at my grandma, in disbelief at her command, her wild-eyed excitement, her nearly feverish joy at the idea of me hurting my sister. "No, Grandma, I can't," I whispered. "You must prick. Yes, here." She tapped the back of her skull. My grandma started bouncing on her haunches now and clapping her hands together, the gruesome smile growing wider and wider until I thought her cheeks would split. "Joanne," my mother yelled, and I spun my head around. She had come into the room and picked my sister up, taking something out of her mouth. Emma could have choked on this. She held a small pearl earring. I was too stunned to speak. I turned to look back at my grandma, but she had gotten up and was back in her armchair, her face now plastered with a look of concern. That night my parents sat me down and lectured me about keeping Emma safe and how they expected me to act more responsibly. I tried to tell them that something was wrong with Grandma, but they shut me down. My dad was so visibly frustrated he walked out of the room, and my mom's chin crumbled and tears filled her eyes. I was sent to bed. After that, I tried to avoid my grandma, and my parents stopped trying to force me to do anything with my sister. Just as I kept away from my grandma, it seemed my parents were purposefully trying to keep me away from Emma. They exchanged anxious glances whenever I was in the same room as her. This suited me just fine in the end, having nothing to do with Emma, but the unfairness of it all, the truth that I couldn't care less about Emma, and it was my grandma who wanted to hurt her, filled me with a bubbling rage. This was 20 years ago. My grandma died shortly after the brooch incident, and I think my parents expected me to be a lot sadder than I was. Truthfully, I was relieved. I was relieved that I wouldn't hear the footsteps outside my door at night anymore, or the giggling, or see her too wide smile and bulging eyes whenever she looked down at Emma. I could feel my grandma's unspoken urging of me to hurt my sister, and at the time, I felt repulsed, horrified. My sister, and I never grew close. I guess that's just something that happens with siblings sometimes. In fact, in all honesty, my dislike continued to grow for Emma through the years. Of course, I hated and resented that she got all the attention, all the concern, and when she started using her teens, my parents found themselves in a never-ending cycle of rehab relapse, leaving my achievements unacknowledged. I graduated top of my class. I got promoted in the firm countless times and made partner at an unprecedented young age. But really, through it all, it was all Emma, Emma, Emma. I thought about this as I sat with my mother in Emma's cold, rank apartment holding the photograph. Unsurprisingly, She OD'd a few days ago. My mother looked completely broken with grief, her hands trembling as she packed boxes full of Emma's useless junk. I can't fathom why she wanted to keep any of it. Look at this, I said, holding the photograph out to my mother. She takes it and smiles through tears. Your grandmother and Emma. So lovely that Emma kept this, she said. The photograph shows my grandma, after she had moved in with us, sitting in her armchair, the afternoon sun streaming in, just like that day. A baby Emma is pulling herself up on the armchair, her back towards the camera. You never believe me, I said quietly as my mother scanned the picture with tremendously sad eyes. About what love? She replied, not looking up. About the things Grandma said. About the things Grandma did. My mother let out a weary sigh. Oh, Joanne, seriously, please, this is not the time. I don't want to relive that grief while I'm going through this. What? I yelled. What grief? I was the one who was grieving. Grieving at no one believing me. My mother's eyes darkened. Her chest heaved. No one believed you, Joanne, because it was utter nonsense. We thought you just had a hard time adjusting, and that's why the lies had started. But then she went silent. A hard time adjusting to what? I shouted. To your sister. To your grandmother. To all of it. You were so close with your grandma, and after she came to live with us, we thought you just couldn't cope with it, and that's why you started making up those stories, she said sadly. I love that Grandma came to live with us. At first, it meant someone finally paid some attention to me. I finally had someone to talk to. My mother let out a cynical chuckle. That's what I'm talking about, Joanne. She shook her head. Your delusions. The idea you were talking with Grandma in the first place. After the stroke, when she came to live with us, she couldn't talk. She couldn't walk. She couldn't do anything for God's sake. Of course, after that revelation, I had to clear my head. I felt like I was going mad. Those memories are so real, so visceral, I couldn't be making any of it up. It did happen. I know it did. Just like my mother to never believe me. But Emma, on the other hand, the drug-riddled deadbeat who drained them of their energy, their finances, everything. I began to think that maybe I should have listened to my grandma then. That I should have hurt Emma when she was still a baby. Maybe everything would be different now. It would mean that I wouldn't have had to leave my sister's apartment. Fighting back tears only to find myself walking alone along a desolate path on the river's edge. It would mean that I wouldn't have had to lift up the loose floorboard in Emma's apartment and retrieve the real needle, still with remnants of the rat poison mixture in it, that the cops didn't bother looking for since they were happy that the one sticking out her blue, cold arm had caused an overdose. And it would certainly mean I wouldn't have to look over my shoulder to make sure no one was around to see me throwing it into the river. Story 4. Something in my house pretended to be my son. I don't even know how to begin this story. Maybe by saying that my third child had always been a little strange. He was born with a condition. No hair grew on his body. No eyebrows, no eyelashes, nothing. And his eyes, they were yellow. Almost like he had some kind of rare albino syndrome. People would have mocked him for it. You know how folks can be when they see something unusual. So, unfortunately, we decided to keep him homeschooled. It just seemed safe that way. Kids can be cruel. Our other 2 children were perfectly normal. Izzy was 14, the oldest. Tom was 9, the middle one. And the youngest, 8 years old, was Robert. Yes, Robert, that was his name. So we lived like any small, happy family. Me, my wife Lucy, and our 3 children. A perfect little picture of domestic life. At least, until that morning when Izzy started talking about strange things. Lucy got up early and made breakfast for everyone. She was a housewife. Over the past few years, I'd started earning well enough as a director that there was no need for her to work anymore. And since Robert was homeschooled, she could keep an eye on him full time. That morning, I just got myself ready quickly and was about to take Izzy and Tom to school. The 2 kids were already outside by the car, waiting excitedly to leave. I said goodbye to Lucy and patted Robert on his bald head. He didn't even flinch, just sat there at the kitchen table, staring blankly ahead. Dad, that kid isn't our brother. Izzy announced as soon as I got into the car. Izzy, how can you say that? I snapped. Just because Robert's a little different doesn't mean you can talk like that. But it's true. Izzy started, but I cut her off. Quiet. I barked. How would you feel if Robert said something like that about you? Robert doesn't say anything, Izzy muttered under her breath. I didn't answer. I just shot her a sharp look in the rear-view mirror. Dad, Tom spoke up then, Marshmallow's barking again. That's when I heard it too, the dog barking outside. Marshmallow was our golden retriever, but lately she'd been impossible to deal with, so we started keeping her outside. She'd been barking nonstop ever since. Maybe it was her age, or maybe she was just in one of her moods. I hear her, I grumbled. When we get back, Tom, we'll check what's bothering her this time. Then I started the car and drove off from the house. I was a little relieved to drop the kids off at school quickly. Tom waved at me, while Izzy didn't say a single word the whole ride, probably because of our little argument that morning. She always did that when something upset her. She just stopped talking. But I loved that little stretch of time alone in the car, creeping through morning traffic, listening to old country songs, daydreaming that I was some kind of Western hero. It's not that I don't love my job or my family. I do. It's just nice to drift away from reality for a bit. There's not much to say about my job. It's boring. My days were always the same. Meetings, reviewing contracts, small talk. By the afternoon, I couldn't wait to get home, ask everyone how their day went, and just be a dad again. But when I got home that day, I was greeted by an empty house. Lucy had left a note saying she'd taken the kids to practice. What bothered me, though, was that Robert wasn't there either. He never left the house. That was one of his little oddities. He never went anywhere. Robert, where are you? I called out, gently at first as I looked around. I don't even know what I expected. Robert didn't speak, but part of me still hoped he'd respond somehow. No sound came. Then I noticed the back door was open. I walked through the kitchen and out onto the porch. Robert was standing in the middle of the yard, staring toward the woods behind the garden. We were lucky, really. The house we bought a few years ago sat on a large piece of land right by the forest. It was beautiful, peaceful, quiet. Robert, what are you doing out here? I asked, walking up to him kindly. But the sight that greeted me made me freeze. Robert's pale white face was smeared with mud, like he'd buried it in the ground. Beside him was a small hole, and his hands were completely covered in dirt. Robert, I snapped. What did you do? Why are you eating dirt? I grabbed him and took him inside, straight to the bathroom. I washed his bald little head, his hands, and scrubbed his toothless mouth clean. Robert had never grown any teeth. His gums looked like a baby's, except for a few tiny black specks embedded deep inside. I rinsed the mud off him thoroughly, dried him up, and led him back to the kitchen. The others still weren't home, and by my count, I had at least another hour before they would be. So, Robert, I said, trying to sound firm, what were you doing out there? Why were you eating dirt? Robert said nothing. Like always, he just stared ahead with those yellowish eyes, gazing into nothing. Never mind. I sighed, giving up. Let's make some real dinner instead. I rummaged through the fridge and found some sandwich fixings and a bag of frozen nuggets. Which one? I asked him, holding them up with a smile. Robert pointed at the nuggets. He didn't usually respond much, but food always got his attention. I made him about 15 pieces, and he devoured them, swallowing each one whole, barely chewing, like he couldn't get enough. I just smiled like a proud dad. Robert loved to eat. He always had. And it was nice to see him enjoy it so much. After that, we just sat in front of the TV, waiting for the rest of the family to come home. The late afternoon passed like any other. Tom told us that he'd been praised in math class for solving a problem on the board. Izzy was still sulking. She barely touched her dinner, so we sent her upstairs early. Robert, on the other hand, ate everything we put in front of him. He shoveled food into his mouth so fast that he swallowed the potatoes and the roasted meat almost whole. Lucy even praised him, saying it was impressive how he could even swallow the chicken bones. Strange kid, but honestly kind of amazing. By the end of dinner, we had to send Tom to his room too, after he asked, "Does Robert always eat like that?" I hated when the kids picked on each other. And from siblings, I found it downright unacceptable. Outside in the yard, Marshmallow had been barking all afternoon again. So I went out to check what the hell was wrong this time. But there was nothing. Maybe she just didn't like being tied up outside. I couldn't help it, though. She started growling at the kids and couldn't be trusted indoors anymore. At the end of the day, after Lucy tucked everyone in, we stayed up talking for a bit. She was in the kitchen washing dishes, and I sat at the counter, picking at some grapes and watching her graceful hands move as she put the plates away. "Lucy, what's that on your arm?" I asked when I noticed a large red spot on the back of her left arm. "Where?" she asked immediately, turning to try and see what I was talking about. I stepped behind her for a closer look. It looked like a bite, like something big had stung or bitten her. There was even some dried blood in the middle of the mark. "It looks like something bit you," I said, and instinctively pressed on the spot with my thumb. "Ow, Ed." Lucy yelped. "That hurts. Don't poke it." "Sorry." I pulled my hand back. "I'll pick up some ointment for it tomorrow." I kissed her on the cheek and headed upstairs. Before going to bed, I peeked down into the basement to check on Robert. I told him goodnight, then went up for a shower. Robert had always slept in the basement. That's where he felt most comfortable. Poor kid. The morning started out like any other. Shower, brushing teeth, getting ready. When I came downstairs, Lucy was already cooking. Eggs and bacon, the usual. I gave her a quick kiss and sat down next to Robert, who was already at the table, waiting for breakfast. That's when I really looked at him, really saw him, and for just a split second, I think I understood what the kids were so afraid of. Robert was naked, and he looked about 17, maybe 18, completely hairless. His eyes were yellow, filmed over with a grayish haze. He just stared ahead, unblinking. But then something seemed to switch back on me. The panic melted away, replaced by a warm rush of fatherly affection. "So, how'd you sleep, Robert?" I asked gently, placing my hand on his cold, damp shoulder. He didn't respond. He just sat there, waiting. Breakfast was nice, just me, Lucy, and Robert. Izzy and Tom said they weren't hungry, but I figured they were probably up to some mischief. They didn't even come downstairs until I shouted that it was time for school. I kissed Lucy goodbye. She smiled and kissed me back, then handed Robert the leftovers, the shells of the 28 eggs he'd eaten for breakfast. He'd grow up to be a strong young man, I thought proudly. We walked to the car together like a happy little family. "Dad," Tom started quietly. "What's wrong with Robert?" "What do you mean, what's wrong?" I frowned. "He's just growing up. Happens to everyone." Izzy didn't say a word. She just stared down at the ground, head low, still sulking. I thought, probably about yesterday's nonsense. "But Dad," Tom continued, "he was smaller than me yesterday. What's happening to him?" "That's enough." I barked. "There's nothing wrong with him. He's fine. You need to accept him for who he is. How would you feel if someone made fun of you?" Tom lowered his head, quiet as a mouse, and kept walking toward the car. "Ed, hey, neighbor, wait up." I turned at the sound of a familiar voice. Clay, the guy who lived next door. We'd known each other for years, though lately we hadn't talked much. "Morning, Clay. What's up?" I asked, walking over after strapping the kids into the car. "Morning, Ed. There are a few things I want to talk about," he started, and before I could say a word, he launched straight into it. "First off, that damn dog of yours never stops barking. It's driving us insane." "Oh, sorry, Clay." I cut in quickly. "I'll take her to the vet this afternoon. I'm not sure what's gotten into her." "Yeah, well," he waved his hand. "The barking's not even the worst part. What really bothers me is, who the hell is that over at your place? A relative or something?" I stared at him, confused. Who was he talking about? He'd known us for over 10 years. He knew everyone in this house. "That young guy," Clay stammered when he saw my face. "The weird one. There's this kid standing out in your yard for hours, and then later that night, I see that same guy throwing out what looks like a child's costume or clothes." "What's going on, Ed?" Who the hell is that? A hot wave of anger shot through me. How dare he talk about my son like that? That weird guy is my kid, you old bastard. I shouted. How dare you say something like that about him? Calm down, Ed. Clay said, stepping back. He can't be your kid. You've only got 2. I've known you for over a decade. Screw you, Clay. I roared. You're such an asshole. Just because my boy is a little different. He doesn't even exist to you? You think we should just look right through him? Is that it? What are you talking about, Ed? Clay asked, backing away another step, his face pale. What's going on with you and Lucy? She was yelling for help yesterday. And when I came over, she just smiled and said everything was fine. What the hell is happening? You. I growled. You're the one who hurt her, weren't you? You're the reason for the mark on her arm? I swear, Clay, if I find out you laid a hand on my wife, I'll get the hell off my property. He didn't wait for me to finish. Clay turned and practically ran back to his house. So much for a good morning. By the time I slammed my car door shut, I was seething. Izzy and Tom didn't say a single word the entire ride. At school, they only waved goodbye instead of speaking. Even my Western playlist didn't sound right that morning. Goddamn Clay. The whole day was shit. That argument with Clay in the morning had thrown everything off. So I decided to head home early. I could do that. I was the principal, after all. By early afternoon, I was already home, hoping to rest a little. But even there, a surprise was waiting for me. Lucy greeted me weakly, then sank down onto the couch. She said she wasn't feeling well, dizzy and exhausted. I sat down beside her, gently stroking her hair, hoping she'd feel better. That's when I noticed it again. Another large red bite mark, this time on her neck. Clay was here, wasn't he? I asked sharply. Lucy just shook her head, murmuring that no, nobody had come by. Then, just like that, she fell asleep on the couch. I took off my jacket and laid it over her, then went to the kitchen to make her some tea. But another surprise was waiting for me there. Robert was crouched in front of the fridge, the contents scattered all over the floor, shoving everything he could into his mouth. Everything that had been in the fridge, milk, carton and all, meat still in its packaging, cheese, eggs in their boxes. His jaw was stretched wide, working unnaturally as he tried to suck in everything from the floor just as it was. He was still naked, filthy, and covered in food, crouched there on the cold marble tiles. Oh, Robert, I sighed, rubbing my temples. I told you, if you're hungry, just say something. We'll make you something to eat. Robert didn't even look at me. He just kept shoving more and more into his mouth. Wait, let me help you, I said softly, kneeling beside him and starting to hand feed him, just to keep him from choking. When he finally finished, I took him to wash up. His bare body was smeared with leftovers. The whole kitchen looked like a war zone. He still just stared blankly ahead as I bathed him, eyes glazed over. Then I found some of my own clothes for him. They were way too big, but they'd do for now. With Lucy out cold, everything else was left to me. Cleaning up, picking up the kids, and even doing a grocery run, because Robert had emptied the entire fridge. First, I went pick up the kids from school, but I kind of wish I hadn't. Izzy's dumb teacher wanted to talk to me, and managed to catch me right there in the parking lot. Same old nonsense. She said Izzy was scared of something. Izzy just had a vivid imagination, I thought, but I still talked to her about it in the car. At almost 15, she shouldn't be afraid of silly things anymore. I brushed the teacher off as quickly as I could. Izzy didn't say a word afterward. She understood I was right. There was nothing to be afraid of. We finished the shopping fast. I tossed everything familiar into the cart. Tom got a few chocolates and a little action figure. Izzy didn't want anything. Said her stomach hurt, but I knew something was off. She was hiding something from me. When we got home, Lucy was already in the kitchen. She looked pale and weak, but was still preparing dinner. Izzy went straight to her room and locked the door. Tom stayed in the living room, playing, and later I helped him with his homework. That's when I remembered Robert. I found him out in the yard again, standing in the exact same spot as yesterday, staring into the forest, completely still, watching the sun go down behind trees. Robert, everything okay? I asked gently. As usual, Robert didn't respond. I placed my hand on his shoulder and steered him back toward the house. His yellow eyes stared off into the distance, a cloudy film over them, like he was blind. Robert, I looked him over. Did you play with Marshmallow? He was covered in dog hair. That's when it hit me. I couldn't hear Marshmallow barking. I hadn't even noticed in all the afternoon chaos. Oh no, Robert, please tell me you didn't let Marshmallow loose, I said, half joking, half worried. Robert just walked into the kitchen without saying a word. I ran a quick check around the yard, calling Marshmallow's name, but there was no sign of her. The leash she'd been tied with was gone too. No dog, no trace. Stupid mutt. We'd put up posters tomorrow. Maybe someone around the neighborhood had seen her. Dinner that night was roast and mashed potatoes. Izzy didn't feel well, so she stayed upstairs. Tom barely ate. I think he just wanted to go play with his new toy. He didn't even sit close to Robert, probably afraid he'd have to share the table with him. Robert, though, ate happily as always. Lucy even cooked him his own portion of meat, which he finished all by himself. The kid had a great appetite. Dinner passed quietly. Lucy wasn't feeling great either, but managed a few bites. Tom just mumbled whenever I tried to talk to him. And Robert, well, poor kid, didn't speak at all. Everything felt calm again that evening. Robert went down to the basement early, must have been tired. Izzy spent the whole afternoon locked in her room. Lucy went to bed early too. She looked completely drained. Tom played for a while longer, then headed off to sleep. I spent a bit more time outside, calling for Marshmallow, but still nothing. Maybe tomorrow. Morning brought another surprise. Robert was a grown man now, around 25, I'd say, and there he was, standing naked in the living room. I was a little startled, sure, but honestly, with how much the boy ate, was it really that shocking he grew up fast? He stood there in the morning sunlight, his neck and limbs unnaturally long, his body lean but muscular. His face, though, that hadn't changed one bit. Those yellow eyes, that toothless mouth, staring blankly just like always. Lucy was already cooking breakfast. She looked a little better than yesterday. She'd made enough food for a whole army again, but I knew Robert would handle it. Izzy didn't come down, said she wasn't hungry. Tom sat at the table with us. It was shaping up to be a quiet morning, until Robert started choking. The sound froze me. He was coughing, gagging, gasping like he couldn't breathe. Lucy and I both panicked. Robert always swallowed things whole, but I never thought the 25 pancakes he was working on would cause any trouble. Yet there he was, choking to death. I rushed to him, sweeping everything off the table in the process. Lucy hurried over, trying to look into his mouth, searching for whatever had gotten stuck. I hit his back, again and again, trying to help him clear his throat, and then something brown and rope-like slid out between his lips. It looked like a leather strap, slick, bloody, covered in pale yellowish fur. Lucy, get back. I yelled, I'll pull it out. I stepped behind Robert and grabbed the thing hanging from his mouth. Pulling as hard as I could, he clung to the table's edge, still gagging, gasping. Then with a wet, tearing pop, I yanked it free. For one frozen second, I wanted to scream, to run, but I didn't, because dangling from the end of that leash was Marshmallow's half-digested head. The half-bone, half-meat, half-skin mess dripped saliva, blood, and what looked like a gelatinous mix of vomit and breakfast scraps. Something inside my head twitched again, and just like that, I couldn't see what I was looking at anymore. All I noticed was little Tom, covering his face in disgust, tears streaming down his cheeks. Stop it, Tom. I shouted. Don't act like you've never thrown up before. Robert's just like the rest of us. He can get sick too. Tom cried harder. Lucy tried to calm him down while wiping the sticky, vomit-covered slime from Robert's chest and chin. I just stood there, holding what was left of Marshmallow's head, mumbling under my breath that none of my kids, except Robert, ever really understood me. I figured it was best if I just went to work. Marshmallow's head went in the trash. All day, I couldn't stop being angry. Lucy called me around noon. She said she'd taken Tom to school, but Izzy refused to go, said she felt too sick to even open the door. Robert was better. Ate again. Same amount as always. Lucy asked if I could pick Tom up in the afternoon, since she still wasn't feeling well. He had extra classes, so we'd probably finish around the same time anyway. So, when work finally ended, I drove over to get Tom. He still wasn't in a good mood. Didn't even want to come home. But after a little insisting, he gave in and we headed back. When I opened the front door, Tom, just like the other day, bolted upstairs and locked himself in his room. I threw my briefcase into the living room chair, irritated. That's when I saw Lucy lying on the couch, Izzy kneeling beside her. What happened? I asked, trying to keep calm. What do you think? Izzy screamed, louder than I'd ever heard her before. That thing hurt Mom. What's wrong with you? Why can't you see what it is? Watch your mouth. I shouted back. How dare you talk like that about your brother? That thing is my brother. Izzy shrieked. And it's not your kid either. I stepped forward and slapped her, hard. She hit the rug beside the couch and started to cry. How could you be so cruel? I roared. Talking like that about your own brother. What the hell is wrong with you? Then I finally looked at Lucy. She was ghostly pale. Another huge red mark on her shoulder. Dry blood crusted in the center like a bite or a sting. She trembled. She looked drained, like there wasn't a drop of life left in her. Oh God, Lucy, my voice shook. What's wrong with you? She didn't answer, just barely shook her head as if she didn't know. Come on, I'm taking you to the hospital, I said, carefully lifting her off the couch. Izzy, you stay here and think about what you've done. Watch your brothers. And I carried Lucy out to the car, gently placed in the seat, then drove off, never even thinking about the fact that I'd just left my 3 children home alone. I drove home alone. Lucy stayed at the hospital. They said she lost a dangerous amount of blood. The doctor told me it looked like something had sucked it out of her. He kept asking when she was last near a swamp or standing water. We live close enough to places like that, sure, but I still didn't understand what he meant. He said it looked as if a giant leech had drained the life right out of her. I didn't know what to say. I just muttered that my daughter had been acting strange lately. Could she have done something? The doctors laughed it off. Said it was probably some kind of bug. A parasite. Maybe a leech. I only stayed a few hours. Lucy got blood transfusions. IVs, the works. Before I left, one of the doctors told me I should go home, get some rest. Check the house in the morning, he said. Maybe there's something in there, a bug or a nest. I was exhausted, but the second I got home, my eyes snapped open wide. The front door was standing wide open, darkness everywhere, the curtains drawn. The house felt empty, dead. I didn't even bother parking properly. I just ran inside. Robert. I shouted the moment I stepped in. Robert. Kids. Where are you? The back door was open too. The curtains fluttered in the night wind. Hello. I yelled again, flipping on every light I could reach. Nothing, just the soft whisper of air moving through the house. I headed for the basement, but the door was open there too. Robert wasn't inside. A sour, rotten smell rolled up from below. Then a noise upstairs. A thump, like someone falling out of bed. Tom, you up there? I called out, racing up the stairs. Tom's door stopped me cold. I hit it hard, like I'd run into a wall. I pushed again, harder this time. It gave only a few inches, wedged tight from the inside. Tom, it's Dad. Open the door, please. I gasped, pressing my shoulder against it. No answer. No sound. Then I thought of Izzy. Where was she? Still locked in her room? I ran down the hall and grabbed her doorknob. It turned easily, and what I saw inside was madness. Robert was crouched at the foot of the bed on all fours. Tom lay on the mattress, eyes wide, glassy, staring at the ceiling. And Robert, oh God, Robert's jaw was unhinged, his mouth stretched open like a snake's. Half of Tom was already inside. Oh, finally, I said calmly, almost relieved. Finally, Tom's making friends with Robert. They're playing. Then a scream, high and sharp. Izzy's voice. She hit me from behind, hard enough to send me crashing into the little dresser. My head slammed against the wood. Everything spun, blurred. But in that dizzy moment, Through the pain and confusion, something inside my head moved. The thing that had been blocking the truth. The fog, the lie. It slipped away. The thing that had poisoned my mind is gone. And for the first time, I knew who my children really were. Morning, I sat in the living room. My hands were bloody. I pressed them to my face and stared through my fingers at the broken window. The stench rising from the basement was unbearable. I didn't have the strength to go down there. Somewhere under my torn shirt, blood kept seeping out. My left leg was probably broken. I could barely feel it. Just a dull ache. But none of that mattered. What mattered was upstairs. Izzy was watching over Tom. He still hadn't woken up. I'd already called the police, the ambulance, but what was I supposed to say? That I raised a monster who made me believe it was my son? Some kind of twisted cuckoo hatchling? Straight to the asylum. So I kept the truth to myself. Robert, that strange thing, that leech that lived through our family, and that night, the fight with the tentacled thing that used to be him. I told no one. Better that way. We said someone broke in, that the kids were home alone, that someone must have been watching. At the hospital they treated me too. And Tom, my boy, had some kind of poison in him. He didn't move all day, but he got better. Eventually, Lucy came home too. Strangely, she barely remembered Robert, as if she'd been somewhere else the whole time. We fixed the house. I installed new locks, alarms, cameras. Made sure no one could ever get in again. Bought a few guns, too. Time passed quietly. Everything went back to normal. Almost. But I still watched the forest. Always. I never told my family, but I knew Robert wasn't dead. Just hurt. Like me, he broke the window that night and fled into the woods. And I knew he'd come back someday. When he does, I'll be ready. I won't let him do this to my family again. That's why I was awake that night. 6 months since the incident, and I still couldn't sleep. I watched the forest through the window. Then I saw the neighbor's yard. I think his name was Otto, the man who lived next door. But it wasn't Otto standing there. It was someone else. A familiar shape. A small, bald boy, maybe 8 years old, standing naked in the yard, staring toward the woods. His yellow eyes glimmered in the dark. Story 5. Everyone at school called her But Ugly Brooke, and there was a price to pay 20 years later. She wasn't meek or gutless, but that was the problem. She was too visible, socially inept, brash-voiced, and incessantly prattling about her scientific interests. Vicious children destroy whatever's different, anything that highlights the tedium of their own cookie-cutter existence. Maybe nature wants anomalies to be stamped out. Maybe it's unavoidable that normal people are cruel to strange people. Maybe I'm just trying to ease my conscience. It all started with Charlene and Daniel. The picture-perfect cheerleader with symmetrical face, blonde hair, and slim physique. The 6'4" footballer crafted of muscle. The big bads. To survive this power couple, most of us worked hard to go unnoticed. A skill Brooke never quite mastered. During her first year of high school, she was guarded by her older brother, Rick. But when he graduated, Charlene and Daniel got to work. They mocked Brooke's idiosyncratic behavior at first, but she wasn't really bothered until they started to insult her physical differences. Split-ended brunette hair, crooked teeth in need of braces, exaggerated space in between the eyes, a roll of puppy fat around the tummy. The poor girl eventually earned a juvenile name, But Ugly Brooke. Some called her Front Bum Brooke, on account of her slight belly, but it was But Ugly Brooke that stuck. Everyone used the name, just to avoid being the big bad's next victims. That's how I factor into this horrid equation. We were waiting outside the science lab, when Daniel hurled Brooke to the floor. When she tried to stand, Charlene slammed a dainty plimsoll against her back. No, Piggy. You walk on all fours, okay? Bawling Brooke did as cruel Charlene instructed, but I was blocking her way, standing in a frozen stupor in the middle of the corridor as the ordeal played out. It took me a second too long to shuffle my stiff feet to the side, and the big bads noted that with gleeful faces. They were gluttons for weakness in others. Why so slow, Lindsay? Asked Daniel. I stammered. I was just, Charlene imitated, and a few of her friends snickered. Lindsay, get on all fours and play with the piggy. No, I internally begged. Then, I don't want to play with butt-ugly Brooke, I said loudly, before turning to the crawling girl. So, drag that front bum across the floor and get to class, piggy. I had never said anything so awful to anyone, but please don't judge me. You don't know the fear Charlene can instill with a glance. A lump of dread congealing the chest, threatening to stop my very heart. Unbridled fear. I'm making excuses again. Was it cowardly to direct the bully's attention back to Brooke? Yes. Does that make me a bad person? I still don't know. Survival instinct, I called it. Weaselly and cunning, I call it now. Whatever the case, the big bads howl with laughter. So I saved myself. Anyway, that's the worst thing I ever did. And this evening, 20 years later, it almost cost my life. Lindsay, right? The man across the supermarket aisle asked. I instantly recognized him as Brooke's older brother, Rick. That returned terrible memories to my mind. There's a reason I rarely return to my hometown. After a minute of chatting, Rick asked me to dinner, and I stupidly said yes. Throughout the meal, I doubted whether I even liked him. Maybe I only agreed out of guilt for mistreating his sister. And maybe that was why I agreed to come back to his place too. His parents' old house. You inherited this? I asked. He shook his head. No, I'm visiting Brooke, remember? I had only been half present during the meal, but my brain was catching up, visiting Brooke. Shit, I should go, I said. Too late. A voice sounded upstairs. Who's there, Rick? She spoke more softly than she once had, but it was her, Brooke. Sorry. Rick called back. I met her at the supermarket and... Her? She was coming down the stairs. You've brought her to my family home? Unbelievable. I just put the kids to bed, and you brought a... Brooke saw me. Her. She recognized me, but I didn't recognize her. Slim, hair obediently velvety, teeth straight, eyes noticeably closer together, suggesting she had undergone plastic surgery. Beautiful Brooke now. I hated myself for that thought. Rick gestured at me. This is... I know who it is, she said. I had to get out. Rick, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving. And Brooke, I'm sorry for what I did. Rick looked gormless as I backed out the front door. I expected one of the siblings to stop me, but they started to bicker about Brooke ruining her brother's date. I waited for an Uber on the front lawn, preferring that to standing in the hallway with her, preferring that to confronting what I'd done. Coward. The front door opened behind me, but I kept looking out at the road ahead. Lindsay called Brooke as she walked across the grass. We got off on the wrong foot. I turned in time to see a split-second flash of the ceramic vase before losing consciousness. And when I woke, an unknown length of time later, my head and ankles were throbbing. With great difficulty, I sat up to find myself in an attic, dark save for the orange glow of a light bulb overhead. I was sitting outside that pool of light, blind to my own body, not blind to the pain though, and my ankles wouldn't allow me to stand. Panic took hold. I'd been hobbled. I let out a little murmur of horror as I reached forwards, finding ankles swollen and damp to the touch under the dingy light bulb. Brooke sat at a wooden work table laden with metal utensils too distant to discern. But even the least adventures of imaginations could take a well-aimed stab at what purpose those tools might serve. The sound of me shuffling into a sitting position alerted her. She swiveled in her creaking desk chair to face me. You're awake. Rick? I whispered in a failed cry for help. Don't bother. Was Brooke's advice? He's out. By the time he's conscious, we'll be done. True terror set in. I rattled my limp legs about, willing the bones of my ankles to miraculously heal, but succeeding only to send fresh surges of pain through them. Then I let out a little blubber of fright and braced for death. Death? I scoffed. If she were going to kill you, you wouldn't be awake right now. I cleared my throat. Brooke. Don't you mean but ugly Brooke? What about babbling Brooke? That was the only one I liked. The only creative one. I was a loudmouth. I wanted to scream at her that I'd already said sorry, that this was an unjust punishment. It didn't fit the crime, but I listened to my trusty survival instinct. I needed to placate her. We're even, Brooke. I hurt you. You've hurt me. It's over now. I won't go to the police. No, you won't. She got up and started back into the dark corner of the attic, telling me to stay put. This made her giggle, as I evidently wasn't going anywhere, not on those ankles. At that point, I didn't fully know terror. I would. There was a murmur from the shadows, and a dull shuffle against the floorboards. Come on, Brooke grunted, re-entering the light with a dog leash. She was leading something past the work table. Someone, on all fours, was a woman with a balloon body, weighing possibly 600 pounds. Clumps of her blonde hair were gone, most likely due to ill health beyond obesity, judging by the discoloration of her skin, marred with bruises and unknown stains. She had no teeth, and her face had been surgically altered. But unlike Brooke, this crawling creature's eyes had been pushed farther apart. I wouldn't have recognized an enslaved woman, if not for the rags of an old cheerleader outfit hugging her otherwise new form. Charlene, gummy lips quavering and speech impeded. The toothless woman begged. Cue me. Brooke backhanded her captive's bloated face. Animals don't speak, but ugly. The deformed woman oinked through blubbers. Good, Brooke said, and don't even think about standing. No, Piggy. You walk on all fours, okay? It's a strange thing, feeling empathy for someone so monstrous. Though what I felt most of all was horror, because... Now we need to talk about what happens to you, Lindsay, said Brooke as Charlene crawled backwards into the shade, oinking as if performing a rehearsed routine. This is crazy. What are the odds you and I would meet again? Brooke said, talk about good fortune. For both of us, actually, this is your chance for redemption. Lindsay, I took away your ankles because you're a worm, so you'll crawl, Lindsay, for your life. Brooke opened the attic door and light erupted into the loft space from below, revealing another horror. On a filthy mattress opposite me, breathing gently, was a limbless, perhaps also tongueless, judging by his muteness, torso of a man. It would have been less horrific if he were dead, I realized, and there was little by which to identify him. But I knew it was Daniel. Don't mind my husband, Brooke said. Then she raised a brow at me. I showed you the exit, Lindsay. Aren't you going to crawl out before I catch myself a new pet? Terrified by the prospect of ending up like Charlene, I dug my fingers into the floorboards and clawed my way towards the attic door. Dragging my broken ankles across the floor, I wailed in pain, but managed to dangle them out to the attic opening, before I had a chance to wonder what to do next. Down the hatch, Brooke said. She pushed hard on my back, and I shrieked as I fell through the opening. It's a miracle I didn't break anything else as I slid bottom first down the ladder. But there was certainly far more excruciating pain as my ankles met the upstairs landing. Help! I sobbed, a crumpled mess on the carpet. Soundproofed house, Lindsay, Brooke said, stepping onto the first rung of the ladder. Crawl, worm. Crawl. Every muscle in my body spasming with dread and adrenaline. I pulled myself down the stairs on my front. Then I slithered my worm-like form across the front hallway, with Brooke in pursuit. There we go, Lindsay, she said as I clambered to my knees. I knew you'd do it. I pulled the unlocked front door inwards, bringing in a gust of what I feared would be my last taste of fresh air, for I could hear Brooke striding hurriedly across the entryway. I whimpered, expecting this all to have been nothing, that I would become Charlene anyway. Quickly, little worm, came a whisper from behind me. I hurled myself over the threshold. The door slammed behind me. I had made it. From there, I crawled across the front path and up the pavement whilst calling the police. They tell me they arrived to find Brooke, had fled with Charlene and Daniel. Rick was unconscious in the spare room. As I lie in this hospital bed, the police officer keeps telling me I'm safe now. I'm not with these crippled ankles. Not while she's still out there. Story 6. I regret the operation. Post-op journal. Day 1. Hey, so yeah, my doctors ordered me to keep a journal, which is apparently standard for post-op. I guess having a record of my symptoms and such is going to be more reliable than just my testimony at follow-ups. I do wish I knew more about what exactly those symptoms are going to be, but I guess that's the trade-off when you get something experimental like this done. Well, okay, they don't like me calling it that. It's exclusive and cutting-edge, front-of-the-line treatment. And if it works, then I don't have to be on medication for the rest of my life, or have any more surgeries, ever. It's supposed to become the new safe first step treatment. If that's true, I have my doubts. But at least so far I feel just fine. Great. No bleeding, no pain, even at the incision site, which is definitely a first. They said the first few days will feel fine, at least till the lidocaine wears off. It does feel a bit tingly, I guess, like something is buzzing the back of my head, or kind of like when you get shocked by static electricity, just continuous. Not the worst, but annoying when I think about it, kind of like manual breathing, when you realize you're not doing it on purpose, and then you can't forget about it, and you have to decide to breathe, each time, until you forget about it again. I did expel the first bile at 4 a.m. and bagged it for testing, of course. It's really fascinating the kinds of things they can pick up about you from that. It keeps a record of your entire genetic profile, and depending on viability, they say it can even pick up on things like what's supposed to be your favorite color, or at least the color you've looked at the most. It was a lot more mobile than I expected. The medication in my system was supposed to make it slower, at least as sluggish as I am, but it was quite lively once it climbed out. It smelled like yeast and battery acid, and it looked disgusting. Eventually, I managed to kick a trash can over it and bag it from there. I do feel incredibly lucid and pure, like in an empty way, like waking up when you feel 100 pounds lighter, even if nothing about you has physically changed. Nothing about me has physically changed, but I'm still grounded. Everything feels more vibrant. I'm already thinking differently, or at least coming to different conclusions about things. I don't think Eve felt this. Present in years. At least not since I was in school. At least, I think I was in school. Clear-headed. Some confusion, I guess. So, in conclusion, I'm well. Day 1 synopsis. Pain, none. Mobility, low. Numbness in legs and hands, as expected. Mood, stable. Fine. First day bile was black in color and difficult to wrangle. The sample bag has been sealed from oxygen and twitching has ceased. Day 2. I'm beginning to wonder about regret. I mean, can you regret something you don't remember? I feel like I've done something wrong. Something before the surgery. But everything before is foggy and... I'm not hearing voices or anything, but I am remembering things people were saying to me. I don't know these people, but they weren't doctors. And there were so many of them standing in my room and, well, I can't find any sign of them. In fact, there's no one here in the whole house. I was finally able to move again today, and I was able to make it to the main floor of the house. It's older than I remember, and I know no one is home, because if they did, they would have heard me screaming, or I would have heard them. Am I supposed to be quarantined after my surgery? I couldn't find anything about it in the aftercare instructions, which I checked when I crawled back. I'm going to check the website after this. Maybe they can send somebody. Regardless, I am eating and drinking normally. I don't know where the food is coming from, but it's always here. I can't find it, but I can smell it really strongly, everywhere, like it's in walls or vents. It smells the way sugar tastes, when it's wet and clumped. Why someone would be doing that, I don't know. But at least I do have the granola bars right next to my bed. So I'm okay for now, but I hope they stop. I can't reach it and the food will go bad in there. My jaw hurts now, but that's normal for an all granola diet. I guess I'm lucky that's the only pain I'm experiencing. The buzzing has expanded to my hands and feet and down my back. It's like a tingling almost, like menthol cigarettes or Pop Rocks candy. It's not bad, but a little distracting. But hopefully it means the use of my legs will be coming back. I do feel more energetic. I don't think I'll be sleeping through the night. Feeling really good right now. Feel alive. Music helps. Day 2 synopsis. Pain, mild, 2/10 at most. Mobility, low, but more energy. Mood, great, happy, excited. A little scared. First day bile testing returned as normal. No second day bile. Doctor's voicemail transcript. No diagnosis or detailed analysis yet, but it passed all the major tests, so there's some comfort in that. You are currently testing negative, and HFBF consumer copies can often take 60 to 90 days to process, roughly when the patient is fully recovered, patient being you. Of course, haha. Anyway, get well soon, rest and drink plenty of water, and keep in touch. Concerns? I have no concerns. I don't know why I wrote that. Concerns. Sorry, that's not on the form. Memory. Please help. I keep forgetting something. Day 3. I logged onto the website first thing in the morning. Or rather, when I woke up, which was not morning. In fact, actually, so, day 3. I logged onto the website first thing in the morning. Or rather, when I woke up, which was not morning. In fact, actually, so, day 4. I logged onto the website first thing in the afternoon and discovered my account had been locked out. Apparently, there was some issue with the insurance, and they can't give me access until my payment is cleared, which doesn't make any sense because my mom paid out of pocket. I know she did. Her receipt is in the paperwork. But whatever, I still get access to my doctor's office and post-op recovery care. It just might take longer because they're so backed up with patients compared to the website. There's like 1 million people running the site, and only the one office in the country that performs this study, or procedure, or at least they're the only licensed clinic in several states that actually has a success rate. Successes. So that's good, right? Because they probably knew what they were doing. And this gives me the highest chance of success and actual repair, not growth around what's wrong with me, not living with it just. Gone. All of it. I don't feel like me yet. But I never did before this either, really. Standard day 4 stuff. My memory is still foggy and my energy is low again, but I am regaining feeling in my legs. And when I did finally sleep, I slept well. Really well. My dreams were very vivid and composed. I'm not sure what word to use. Empty and quiet. No people besides me. No faces or voices or anything else, except reflections. Reflections in water and the dew on the trees, or shards of glass. It was beautiful and quiet, but the whole place had a very pleasant hum. It felt familiar, and I still hear the sound of it as I'm typing this, which is a nice change from constant ringing in the ears, and no nightmares. So that's one reduction of a negative symptom. But my fingers are too numb to type, so the rest of the recovery journal is going to be dictated by some app. I think it's mostly because it's way too cold in here. Why my fingers aren't cooperating. Ah, okay, and I'm finally off hold now. And, wow. Okay, are you kidding me? The payment was refunded because she did it on one of her credit cards and then closed the account, or the bank closed it. So now I have to take it up with the bank because she is not picking up my calls, and the fact that I know money shouldn't be a problem for us doesn't make it better. This is still urgent because I need post-op care, and they can't afford to dispatch a caregiver for me until the payment goes through, and she's not picking up my calls. Mom picked a really bad time to skip town, or whatever she's doing that resulted in this. Careless and frustrating because I know it was her idea anyway. The whole thing, I remember now. She was one of the people I remember in my room singing and swaying, pleading with me to get the surgery. And I did. She said it was the one thing after the hospital, and yes, doctor, I'm sorry. I didn't catch that. Okay, thank you. They're sending me the meds for day 5 on rush order since I'm already entering stage 4. Luckily, that means I get my legs back. They're weak, and I can't stand straight up, but I can take slow steps. Enough to move around the house more. I don't recognize it. I thought I did, but I was wrong. I had the nightmare again. That's where I recognize it from. Good thing the pills are coming soon. Pain none, with reduced sense of touch. Mobility returning. Mood fading. Burning of the esophageal tract. Reduced perception of the color purple. Day 5. I can feel my legs and arms again, and I don't like it. I hate it. My fingers are still numb and weak, like they're moving through honey. I keep dropping my pills. The doctor said to take one every 6 hours. I took 2 for good measure. My symptom reduction has accelerated. The DR said that could be a concerning sign, since this procedure must follow a very specific aftercare schedule, and I'd be their only patient so far to request a caretaker or house visit. They said everyone else in the study has had no complications. If I'm falling behind, they can't be liable for what happens, but they will try to help me however they can. I heard something. It sounds like someone's in the house. It must be the rat, sneaking food into the house or eating it. That's where it's coming from. I tried to find a bath for the rat. The papers were inside the desk. I found what happened to the account. It was closed because she paid it out. She was a recipient. They paid her. So then why am I still being sent a bill? This is wrong. This is fucking wrong, and that woman is not my mother. She can't be, because that's not my name. That's not my name on the receipt. That's not what she looked like. The people in the room weren't real. Whoever was giving the money for putting me in the study was not my relative, and they're long gone. E. Bluller. That's the name on the check. That's who I need to find. Or I need to speak to someone at the website. I have to get that money back so I can resume my care. I think I pulled a stitch in my stomach. This little excursion caused me in pain, and I didn't find the rat. Pain, yes. Mobility, variable. None at the moment. Mood, hurting, itching and scabbing around the injection site. No blood, but slow crystalline discharge, white in color. Will order anti-dander shampoo. Meds seem to be helping. I mean, I'm still feeling better than before the surgery, but there's a gap between where the meds wear off before the next pair hit my bloodstream. That is unbearable. I can't take them closer together, though, or I risk an overdose and internal bleeding. My post-op kit includes M4, needles, and I'm still in stage 4. I watch some TV, phone, a screen of some kind. The study is on the news, which I didn't mean to click, but there it was, and I couldn't just skip past. Thankfully, it's been deemed a success. My heart went back into my chest in relief. They named all my symptoms, listed in the recovery process that everyone is following. I'm still on track, and so far no one is testing positive for, so it works. It fucking works, and I gotta be a part of the first successful trial. I shouted at my TV when I saw my name listed in the list of study participants, and the news anchors were reading out all the names and thanking us personally. And thank you, Lactusternfo Canerms Kedron, who before Coach Foytner Goykoi and our Hepos Cryptian Dash. I tapped the screen, but the static continued. Ksajit Biokshaps Asakash, Op 8 Ichkoisa, SKHB Piopoi Jaksha Gia Jisan, KVJN NHN FLKN DKJ VLS and Favoys and BLs 09 Tudge. It was getting louder and louder. My fingers keep slipping. The volume button was going up by itself. The buttons don't work. I can't reach fuck that's so loud. There, it's broken now. I didn't know what to do. I even unplugged it, and it was hurting me, but now I have no TV, which isn't great. I don't think I can get back up to plug it in again. Oh shit, what time is it? Day 6. I got a call from work. I was supposed to be back today. I lost track of time. Day 7. Day 8, and my boss was not happy. At all. She called me 2 hours after my first shift back was apparently supposed to start, but I just sent her a picture of my legs. She didn't respond, so I'm either fired or off the hook. But either way, I'm not ready to go back yet. They said online everyone was at stage 4, but they also said in the consult that we'd only need a week off and be ready for work, with no heavy lifting by day 6, and then we'd be done with the stage and be healing. It's supposed to be healing why won't it heal, why won't it heal, why won't it heal I? Have to. Calm down. I'm pulling my stitches. Pain. Mobile at 54, why no? Mood. I'm so alone in this. I thought my mom would be here, or whoever that lady was. She's not my mother. My mother is dead. Day 9. Nobody's called today. My boss, my doctor. My phone is low on charge. I don't understand why I still can't move. I itch all over. I took a picture of my legs and arms. I can't see it myself, but in the picture there is just a writhing mass of purple and veins and splotches and eye. Oh God, it was a live photo. I'm gonna be SI backslash KSXZ fuck call hospital call hospital call hospital. Oh God. Okay, I found it. God help me remember how to do this. Okay. The shot helps, but fuck, I definitely pulled a few stitches. And there goes the second day bile. Or whatever day it is now. Off you run, little thing. That's a bad sign. Call my doctor. I'm on hold again. They have the same robot lady from the website doing intake now. She wanted me to describe my problems before connecting me to the office. Apparently expelling the second day bile and pulled stitches aren't enough of a problem to get a direct line. But she's rerouting me to billing, so maybe an actual human will help me talk to a doctor or nurse or someone who actually knows why this could be happening. They're gone. That wasn't Janice. That wasn't the clinic. I looked it up and it's gone. I don't know if they've changed their name or got shut down or killed, but whoever was on the other line said the practice had dissolved. And she needed to handle my billing problem before affirming for care, and I just hung up on her. Because I'm bleeding through my bandages and through my shirt. I'm gonna die here. I'm going to die because of this stupid operation that I can't even remember who told me to get it. I can't remember who I was. And I'm dying, that's all I am now. I have a little bit left. She's here. I have been seeing her, whoever she is, in the mirrors and broken glass, and in the vents. She won't stop smiling. Last night she hovered above my bed, looking down at me with a huge smile that never twitched or stopped. Just a big shape even in the dark and between my fading consciousness and haze, and big round soulless eyes with my passport. All my papers clenched in her hand, but on all of them, my face was gone. Instead, I was just her face. She was eating my second day bile, still smiling. It twitched inside her, like the veins in my legs did. I don't need the camera to see it now. I am rotting from the inside. The incision is a gaping hole now, purple and crusted over, solid. The scabs taste like sugar, and they sparkle like the prettiest thing I've ever seen. No blood. I try to tie the stitches back together, but it's no use. I just dug the gash deeper, honestly. I think she's been cutting them whenever I sleep or pass out. I'm trying to keep my eyes open, but the pain and the numbness, I feel both at once, and that's so much worse than nothing. I hate that it's ending this way. I hate it for my real mother, or whoever cared about me before this. But I think I know what will happen if I don't. She is going to crawl inside. Just needs me to breathe, or beat for her. Whatever. I have enough to stop that. I'm going to wait until she gets closer. When it's too late for her to pull back out of me, I don't know what will happen to me. I'm probably dead. I'm going to send this out somewhere, to any place that might even pretend to believe me or care what's happening. I don't know what you can do about it. I just wish I wasn't going through this alone. Story 7. My cousin and I used to play a game with my uncle's Polaroid camera. I think something else is still playing it. When my uncle died, nobody knew what to do with his house. He never married, never had kids. It was just him, his little 2-story place on the edge of town, and his weird hobbies. He had been a strange uncle my whole life. The one who still used a landline, still collected VHS tapes, still had a paper TV guide by the couch like it was 1998. So when the lawyer told us he'd left the house to me, my first reaction was pure, selfish relief. I was drowning in rent. I worked a crappy support job at a software company, taking calls from people who somehow managed to break things by turning them on. The idea of not having to split a one-bedroom with a stranger sounded like a miracle. The house needed work, but it was structurally fine. 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, creaky wooden floors. It smelled like dust and old coffee. It felt lonely, but not in a creepy way. At least, not at first. We started cleaning it out the Saturday after the funeral. It was just me and my cousin Lily, who'd been closest to my uncle besides me. He really didn't throw anything away, huh? She said, holding up a cracked lava lamp. Maybe he just thought everything would come back in style. I said. We laughed a little. It felt good to laugh. The Polaroid camera was in the hall closet on the top shelf, just where I remembered it. Holy shit, Lily said, reaching for it. Remember this thing? I did. When we were kids and got stuck at his house during family gatherings, we'd play this elaborate game where one of us would hide and the other would try to sneak around with a camera and take a picture without the other noticing. You got a point if you caught the other kid on film without them seeing you. Bonus point if they looked really scared. We thought we invented horror photography. Lily turned the camera over in her hands. God, I love this stupid thing. Does it still work? I asked. She popped open the compartment. There's film in it. 20-year-old film? That can't be good anymore. Only one way to find out. She lifted the camera, pointed it at me before I could protest, and clicked. The camera whirred and hummed and spat out a square. The picture developed slowly, colors muddy and washed out. But it was there, me, standing in the dusty hallway, mid-blink. Still works, she said, satisfied, and set it on the entry table. We went back to sorting boxes. It wasn't until later, when Lily had gone home and I was alone, that I opened the hall closet again and saw the photos. Hundreds of them, stacked in shoe boxes, pinned to corkboards, taped it inside of the door. Polaroids, all of them. It was like opening the door of some strange, analog Instagram addiction. Most were ordinary. Pictures of my uncle's living room, his old car, his garden, stacks of books. A few were people I recognized. Me and Lily as kids, my mom, my grandmother before she passed. But the majority were backs. People's backs. People standing at the sink, hunched over the coffee table, bending to tie their shoes. Sometimes you could see a sliver face in a mirror or window reflection, but usually it was just the back of someone's head, the line of a spine to a shirt, shoulders drawn up or slumped. All of them were taken from behind. All of them looked like the subject had no idea they were being photographed. A weird, uncomfortable chill ran through me. I told myself it was just his idea of art. Street photographers did candid stuff all the time. Maybe this was just his version, but domestic, creepy but not illegal. Still, I closed the closet door and tried not to think about it. I moved into the house a week later. At first it was almost nice. Lonely, yeah, but I kind of liked it. The creaks and groans became familiar. My uncle's old recliner was surprisingly comfortable. I bought a thrift store lamp, a cheap rug, tried to make it feel like mine. The first few nights, I slept with the TV on because the silence felt heavy. But nothing too weird happened, until I woke up on Wednesday and found the Polaroid on my kitchen table. I was sure I'd left it on the entry table by the front door. That's where Lily had set it down. I hadn't touched it since. I picked it up, frowning, and found a fresh photo underneath it. It was me, obviously, sitting on the couch the night before, laptop open, blue light reflecting off my face as I scrolled through emails. The photo was taken from behind. I was wearing the same sweatshirt, my hair in the same messy bun. The TV was on in front of me, a blurry wash of light. I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Okay, calm down. There was a logical explanation. I must have accidentally taken this. Maybe there was a timer function I messed with as a kid and forgot about. Maybe I somehow hit it while I was walking by and didn't hear it over the TV. Maybe the rationalizations were flimsy even as I thought them. Lily, I said out loud, relieved at the sudden possibility. She had a spare key. Maybe she was screwing with me. It was exactly the kind of shit she'd pulled. I texted her, very funny. You didn't scare me. You just wasted old film. A minute later, what are you talking about? The pic you took last night. Of me on the couch. Nice stalker vibes that I was at home last night. I worked a double. I was in bed by 9. You didn't come by the house at all. No? Why? I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. I sent her a photo of the Polaroid. She took a minute to answer. Okay, that's actually creepy. You really didn't take this? Dude, no. Why would that be my idea of a prank? Burn that house, LOL. I laughed, but it came out thin and shaky. I put the Polaroid in a drawer, camera on top of it, and told myself that was the end of it. The next one showed up 2 days later. I was rushing to work, half asleep, when I saw it on the small table by the front door, the Polaroid camera and another photo underneath. This one was me again, standing at the kitchen counter, pouring coffee into my travel mug. The angle was low, like whoever took it was crouched near the floor. In the photo, my head was tipped slightly to the side. The back of my neck was exposed. I ran my hand over that exact spot and felt goosebumps prickle on my skin. I didn't text Lily this time. I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I did the thing my uncle never would have done. I bought a security system. By that weekend, I had 3 motion-activated cameras set up, one by the front door, one pointing down the hallway toward the bedrooms, and one in the living room. I put the little yard sign out front, protected by Skishel security, like a charm against evil, just in case it wasn't ghosts, just in case some creep really was coming into my house at night. The next night, I stayed up late on the couch pretending to watch TV while I kept one eye on the live feed from the cameras. Nothing, just static. Soft changes in light and shadow, the occasional flicker as the heater kicked on. At 1:30 in the morning, my eyes burned. I finally gave up and went to bed. I woke up at 3:12 a.m., not because of a noise, not because of a nightmare, because I suddenly felt watched. It was like someone had leaned over me while I slept, that suffocating awareness of another presence, inches away. I lay perfectly still, heart pounding my throat, and forced my eyes open. The room was dark. The shadow of my dresser loomed against the wall, moonlight seeping through the edges of the curtains. There was no one standing over me, no looming shape, but the feeling didn't go away. I sat up slowly, flicked on the lamp, and scanned the room. Empty. I slid out of bed, forced myself to walk down the hallway, past the dark bathroom and the empty second bedroom, into the living room. The Polaroid camera was sitting on the coffee table, pointed directly at the hallway. There was a new photo underneath it. My hand was shaking as I picked it up. It was me, asleep in bed on my side, hair spilled across the pillow, taken from behind. There was something else in the picture, too, something that made my stomach drop. In the mirror of my closet door, you could see a sliver of the room, my back, the edge of my pillow, and behind me, just at the limit of visibility, there was suggestion of a shape, darker than the rest of the shadows, a hint of height, a slight curve as if someone were bending over me. I dropped the photo like it burned. I grabbed my phone and opened the security app. My fingers fumbled with the password. The hallway feed was empty. The living room feed, too. The timestamps ran smoothly. No gaps, no obvious glitches. I rewound to 3:12 a.m. and watched myself on the bedroom camera. I put one in there, too, after the first photo. Roll over and sit up, then swing my legs out of bed and walk to the living room. No one else. No shadows moving where they shouldn't be. And yet the photo existed. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in sick and spent the morning seriously considering booking a hotel and never coming back. Instead, I did something stupider. I opened the closet with the shoeboxes again. I don't know what I was looking for. Confirmation that my uncle was just a weird artist. A note saying, LL got you from beyond the grave. What I found was a separate stack of photos, rubber banded together, tucked behind the others. They were all of the same person. My uncle. Sometimes he was sitting at the kitchen table with a newspaper. Sometimes he was in the recliner, head tilted back, mouth slightly open. Once he was brushing his teeth in the bathroom. All of them were taken from behind. Every single one. In a few, you could see his reflection. A tired man with thinning hair, a worn face softened by age. In one photo, he was asleep in bed. In the mirror behind him, there was the same suggestion of a shape in the shadows. My hand went cold. The last photo in the stack was different. It was of the hallway, right outside the closet I was standing in. You could see the bedroom doors, the scuffed baseboards, the slightly crooked picture my uncle hung of a lighthouse. It was empty, except for a pair of bare feet visible in the very bottom of the frame. Heels turned outward, toes pointing directly toward the camera. The skin on those feet looked wrong. Too pale, veins like dark threads under parchment. The angle was low, like the camera was on the floor, like something was lying on its stomach. Looking up, I shoved the photos back into the shoebox, hands shaking uncontrollably now. I needed air. I needed light. I needed to not be inside these walls with whatever this was. I grabbed my keys and went to the front door. The Polaroid camera was on the entry table, pointed at me. There was a new photo underneath it. I hadn't heard it take anything. I hadn't seen the flash. I forced myself to look. It was me, standing in the hall closet, stacks of photos in my hands, taken from behind. I didn't leave the house. I know how that sounds. I know every survival instinct should have had me sprinting down the street and never looking back, but it felt like I'd already stepped too deep into someone else's game. Like if I turned my back on the house now, something would crawl out of it and follow me. Instead, I called Lily. "Hey," she answered, voice casual. "You alive? I need you to come over," I said. I hated how thin and brittle my voice sounded. "You okay?" No. She didn't ask more questions. On my way. While I waited, I sat on the couch, the security feeds open on my phone, the Polaroid camera sitting on the coffee table between us like a third party in a conversation I wasn't having. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. "Where are you?" I texted. She didn't answer. Instead, I got a notification from the security app. Front door motion detected. I switched to the live feed. The porch was empty. No Lily. No one. My heart hammered. Another notification. Hallway motion detected. The hallway camera feed clicked on. The hallway was empty too. The timestamp was live, the seconds ticking forward. "Stop it." I whispered, like I could scold the house into behaving. My phone buzzed in my hand. New text from Lily. "Sorry, traffic's insane. 10 more minutes." A shutter sound made me flinch. The Polaroid camera word. My breath caught in my throat as it spat out a fresh square. I didn't touch it at first. I just watched the pale rectangle slowly darken, colors seeping in like blood through gauze. When the image finally solidified, I almost dropped it. It wasn't the living room. It wasn't me. It was the front porch, taken from inside the house, through the peephole window in the door. I recognized the distorted ring of glass, the warped view of the street. Lily was standing on the porch, one hand lifted mid-knock, her head turning as if she'd just heard something behind her. The photo was taken from behind her shoulder. I stared at the timestamp in the corner. My uncle had always loved writing on his Polaroids in that tiny, neat handwriting. The date on this one was scrawled in the border. It was today, 10 minutes from now. I don't remember making the decision. One moment I was staring at the photo, the next I was moving. I put the Polaroid face down on the coffee table. I grabbed my car keys and my phone. I dialed Lily as I shoved my feet into my shoes. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, I'm almost." "Don't come to the house," I said, already halfway down the hallway. "I'm leaving. I'll meet you at the diner on Maple. Okay? Right now. Just go there. Please, Lily, I'm serious." There was a pause. Okay, yeah, you're freaking me out a little. "I'll explain everything there," I said, and hung up before she could ask more questions. I didn't look at the security cameras. I didn't look back down the hallway. I opened the front door and stepped out into the afternoon sun like I was surfacing from deep water. Nothing grabbed me. Nothing whispered in my ear. The air outside felt thin and too bright. I locked the door behind me out of habit, sat in my car, and just breathed. I started the engine. My phone buzzed with a notification. Out of reflex, I glanced at the screen. New photo detected on device. Hallway cam. Against my better judgment, I opened the app. The hallway feed snapped into view. The door I just closed was there. The empty entry table. The closet door shut. And in the center of the hallway, just at the edge of the camera's range, there was a shape. Not a trick of shadows. Not a glitch. Something tall, bent at the waist in an impossible angle, like it was folding itself to fit inside the narrow hall. Its limbs were long and thin, hands resting on the floorboards like a person getting ready to crawl. Its head brushed the ceiling. The frame froze. The app crashed. My phone went back to the home screen. My reflection stared back at me from the black glass, pale and wide-eyed. Something moved in the back seat. Just a slight shift, the creak of old fabric. I didn't turn around. I put the car in drive. I backed out of the driveway, hands shaking so hard I could barely keep the wheel straight. As I pulled onto the street, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. No message, just a photo. I opened it. It was me, sitting in the car in front of the house, hands on the steering wheel, head turned slightly toward the phone, taken from behind. I'm writing this from a motel 2 towns over. Lily's okay. We met at the diner. She thinks I've had some sort of breakdown. Maybe she's right. I told her some of it. The parts that sound at least insane. She made me promise to call a therapist. I promised. I don't know if I'll keep that promise. The house is sitting there, empty with all my stuff still inside. My uncle's boxes. The shoe boxes of Polaroids. The camera. I thought about calling a priest. A paranormal show. Burning it to the ground. Instead, I just keep refreshing my phone. Every few hours, another photo comes in from that unknown number. Me at the gas station, putting the nozzle back, got me walking into the motel lobby, got me sitting on the bed, typing on my laptop, always taken from behind. I checked the number once. No caller ID, no record. It just says Polaroid. I don't know who's sending them. I don't know how far this game goes. I only know one thing with absolute cold certainty. Wherever I go, I'm not the one holding the camera anymore. Story 8. I was a groupie to a Native American rock band. They weren't entirely human. My name is Adele Ice, and I'm a 5th-generation voodoo practitioner, born and raised in the gutters of Louisiana. I learned the ancient ways of my ancestors from a very young age, under the guidance of my grandmother. Long rest her soul. I learned all kinds of neat things. I learned to heal the sick with herbal medicine, keep away the bad spirits that torment our homes, and yes, I even learned zombification. Nevertheless, the greatest gift I have is one passed down from one generation to another. When I was still just a little girl, my grandmother told me the women in our family have a very special power. We can talk to the dead, or more precisely, the dead can talk to us. Running my grandmother's little voodoo shop here in the city, I have conversations with the dead on a regular basis. In fact, they're my best customers. For example, there's my favorite customer, Miss Lafleur, a French noblewoman from the 17th century. Bonsoir, Miss Lafleur. Bonsoir, ma charmante confidante. Quelle belle nuit. The dead are always desperate to talk to the living. Oh, how lonely those courteous spirits must be. Then again, I have had the occasional bigoted spirit wander into my abode from time to time. Miss, you know your kind ain't welcome here, said an out-of-touch plantation owner. Excuse me, mister, but this is my store you happen to wander into. It is your kind who ain't welcome here. Of all the customers who have come and gone over the years, both the living and unliving, the most notable by far happened back in the year 1985, when I was still just a young lady. On a rather gloomy, quiet evening in the month of October, I was enjoying some peaceful solitude with my black cat Laveau, when, as though out in nothing, I acquired this uneasy, claustrophobic feeling, like an animal out in the open. Next thing I know, the doorbell chimes as a group of 4 identical men walk in, dressed head to foot in fine black leather. Where underneath the draping mess of their long, dark curls, they don an expensive pair of black shades each. The aura these 4 young men came in here was certainly felt irregular. It wasn't just me that picked up on it. Laveau, resting purringly on the shop counter, rises from his slumber to ferociously hiss at these strangers before hauling off someplace safe. Laveau, get back here this instant. I yell, which to my brand new customers must have made me sound no stranger than a crazy cat lady. You named your cat Laveau? Asked the most noticeable of these men, having approached the counter with a wide and spontaneous grin upon his face. As in the voodoo priestess? That's pretty metal, he then finishes, the voice matching his rock and roll attire. The one and only I reply, smiling back pleasantly to the customer. Are you boys looking for something in particular? Well, that depends, the rock and roller then said, now leaning over the counter toward me, having removed his shades so I can get a better look at his face. By any chance, are you for sale? Before I can respond or even process a question asked, I stare at the young man's face, and to my shock, I see his eyes, staring intently into mine, are not the familiar color brown or any other, but a bright and almost luminous yellow. Frightened half to death by the revelation, my body did not move, instead frozen in some kind of entrancement. Excuse me, I managed to utter. Oh, miss. I'm sorry, he apologizes, having chosen his words poorly. What I meant to say was, of all the trinkets in this store of yours, you are by far the most enchanting. He was a rock star, all right, a silver-tongued one at that. But once the entrancement finally wore off, regaining myself, I quickly realized I knew exactly who these strange men were. My God, I began to speak, my trembling voice still recovering. Your band, yo, my realization declares. What gave it away? Asked the rock star with a smile, clearly well acquainted with being recognized. Most folks don't recognize us without the paint, but once the shades are off, they know exactly who we are. Although, they don't need much of an introduction. AL were one of the most popular shock bands of the 80s, credited as being the first indigenous rock band. They would perform on stage with their faces painted, bodies shirtless, and feathers flowing to their long wavy hair, all while howling like coyotes at the moon. Despite my sheltered upbringing, I had always been a fan of rock music, and rather coincidentally, AL were one of my favorite bands. So, you can imagine my shock when they suddenly walked into my more than humble abode. It was almost like I manifested the whole thing, though it has never been as strong as this before. How rude of me, then shrilled the rock star. Let me introduce you to my friends. Turning to the three band members snooping around the store, the yellow-eyed, silver-tongued devil then introduced each member. This is Harrowhawk, our bass player. Not that he needed to, but I already knew their names. Harrowhawk was the tallest member of the band, and unlike the others, his hair was straight and incredibly long. This is Snake, our lead guitarist. Upon hearing his name, the one they call Snake turns round to wave the signs of the horns at me, like all rock stars do. And this is Cannibal. Despite the disturbing cleverness of his name, the drummer known as Cannibal was a far from intimidating creature, but he sure could pull his weight when it came to playing the drums. Saving himself till last, the yellow-eyed rocker finally introduces himself. And I'm Dash, Sand Wolf. I interrupt gleefully. You're Sand Wolf? I already know your names. By far the most dreamy of the group, Sand Wolf was both the founder and poster boy of the band. Again, grinning to show his satisfaction that I knew his name, he howled faintly with internal excitement. And what would be your name, darling? He now asks, as I try my best not to blush and quiver. You can call me Adelice, I grant him. Well, tell me Adelice, Sand Wolf went on. Are you a true voodooist? Or do you just sell trinkets to gullible tourists? I'm the real thing, baby. I reveal, excitement filling my voice. You want a wish granted, an enemy hex? I'm the one you call. Sand Wolf appeared impressed by these claims, as did the rest of the band, their attention now on us. Again smiling devilishly at me with satisfaction, Sand Wolf now pulls a piece of paper from inside his leather jacket. Here, he says, handing me the paper from across the counter. Since you dig the band, why don't you come to the concert tonight? Studying down at the ticket paper, I now feel rather embarrassed. I didn't even know these guys were in town, let alone performing. Thank you, Mr. Sand Wolf. I exclaim rather foolishly, only now hearing my words aloud. Call me Wolf, he corrects me. And come find us backstage after the show. Security will let you in. Hold on a minute. There is no way Yell are inviting me backstage after the concert. I must surely be dreaming. How will they know to let me in? I asked, trying to hide my fanaticism as best I could. That's easy. You just tell them the password. And what's the password? Sand Wolf smiles once more, as though toying with girls like this gave him sensational pleasure. The password is voodoo. Pretty fitting, don't you think? Yeah, it kinda was. Once I accept the invitation, Sandwolf and the rest of the band leave my abode, parting me with the words, "See you tonight, sweetheart." Wow, I could not believe it. Not only had AO walked into my store, but they had now invited me backstage at the concert. It really pays to be a voodooist. Sometimes. Closing shop early the next day. I dressed myself up all nice for the concert, putting on my best fishnet vest, tight-fit black jeans, and a purple bandana with the cutest little skulls on them. The arena that night was completely crowded. Groupies from all across Louisiana screaming their white trash lungs out. Guys howling and hollering. And then the show began. All the lights went out, which just made the groupies scream even louder, before smoke lit up the stage, exposing Yale in all their glory. My seat was somewhere in the back, but the Jumbotron gave me a good look at my recent customers. Faces painted and bodies gleaming with sweat. They played all the usual hits. Chill to the Moon, Cry My Ancestors, but the song that everyone was waiting for, and my personal favorite, was Skin Rocker, and once the chorus came up, everybody was singing along, "I want to walk in your skin. I want to feel you within. I'm just a skin rock your yard. I'm just a skin rocker. I'm just a skin rocker." Once the concert was finally over, I then made my way backstage, answering the password correctly. I was brought inside a private room, where waiting for me were all 4 band members, along with 3 young groupies beside them. "Hey, it's a voodoo chick. She made it," announces Lung Snake, with his arm wrapped around one of the 3 groupies. "Have a seat, darling." After reacquainting myself with each member of the band, whom I'd only just seen the day before, Sandwolf introduces me to the other girls. "Ladies, this is Adele Ice. She knows voodoo and shit." The 3 girls gave me a simple nod of the head, or an ingenuine, "Hey." They clearly didn't like all the attention this little Creole girl was receiving all of a sudden, when after all, they were here first. "All right, Adele Ice, Lung Snake, then Wales," breaking up the pleasantries. "Show us what you got." "Excuse me?" I asked confusedly. "Come on, Adele Ice. Show us some voodoo shit. That's why you're here after all." "Ah, so that's why I was here." They wanted to see some real-life voodoo shit. It was a secret that AO were into some dark magic, and although voodoo meant far more than sacrificing chickens and raising the dead, I agreed to show them all the same. Having brought some potions along from the store, I pour the liquids into an empty mop bucket, sprinkling in some powder and imported Haitian plants. I then light a match and place in the bucket, birthing a high and untamable fire. "You guys want to talk to the dead?" I inquire, pulling out my greatest trick. "Hell yeah, we do." Cannibal answers, as though for the whole group. "All right, well here it is." I began, raising my hands toward the fire with my eyes closed shut. "If there's a spirit with us here tonight, please come forward and make your presence known through this fire." "Don't you need a Ouija board for that?" asked the busted blonde, far from impressed. "Ouija boards are for white folks." I thought internally, as I felt a warm presence now close by. "Good evening, mister." I announced to the room, to the band in groupies' bewilderment. "Good evening." Miss a charming old voice croaked behind me. That was some show your friends had tonight. Opening my eyes, I turned round to see an older gentleman, wearing the fine suit of a jazz musician and humming a catchy little tune from between his lips. "Mister, would you kindly make your presence known to my friends here?" I asked the spirit courteously. "Why, of course," misagrees the spirit, before approaching the fire and stroking his hand to the smoky flames, cutting the fire in half. "Whoa! Holy shit!" exclaimed the members of the group, more than satisfied this was proof of my abilities. "That's totally metal, man. Totally metal." We had quite the party that night, drinking and drugs. The groupies making out with different members of the band, but not Sandwolf. In fact, I don't quite remember him leaving my side, despite his seductive charm and wiles. He was a complete gentleman, to my slight dissatisfaction. "Can I ask you something?" I pondered to him. "Why are you guys always howling like coyotes?" After snorting another line of white powder, Sandwolf turns up to me with glassy, glowing eyes. "Because we're children of the night," he reveals. "The moon is our mother, and when she comes out, we answer her call." Those were the exact lyrics of Children of the Moon I remembered, despite my drunken haziness. I woke up sometime around the next day, stirring up from wherever as I passed out. I look around to find I'm in some hotel bedroom, where beside me, a sleeping sand wolf snores loudly, wearing nothing else but his birthday suit. Damn it, I thought. The one time I actually get to sleep with a rock star, and I'm too shit-faced to remember. Trying painfully to wander my way to the bathroom, I enter the main room of the suite, having to step over passed-out band members and half-naked groupies. Damn, that girl really was busty. Once in the bathroom, I approached the sink to splash cold water on my face. When that did nothing to relieve the pain I was feeling, I turned up the cabinet mirror, hoping to find a bottle of aspirin or something. But when I look at my reflection in the mirror, I realize I'm not alone. Standing behind me, staring back at my reflection, I see a young red-headed woman in torn pieces of clothing. But the most disturbing thing about this woman, aside from her suddenly appearing in this bathroom with me, is that the girl was covered entirely in fresh blood and fatal wounds to her flesh. In fact, her flesh wounds were so bad, I could see her ribcage protruding where her left breast should have been. And that's when I knew this wasn't a living person. This was the spirit of some poor dead girl. Once I see the blood and torn pieces of flesh, the sudden shock jolts my body round to her, where I then see she's staring at me with a partly shredded face, her cheek hanging down, exposing a slightly visible row of gurning teeth. In too much shock to scream, or even process whether I'm dreaming, I just stare back at the girl's animated corpse, my jagged breaths making the only sound between us. And before I could even utter a single word of communication to this girl, either to ask who she is or what the hell happened to her, the exposed muscles in her face spit out a single haunting phrase: "Get away from them." And with that, the young dead girl was gone, as though she was never even there, although I was in the dark as to how this girl met her demise, which at first glance seemed as though she was torn apart by some wild animal I could put together had something to do with the band. After all, the dead girl looked no different to the many groupies that follow Ale across the country. But if that really was the case, what in God's name happened to her? As uncomprehensive as the dead girl's words were, they were comprehensive enough that I knew it was a warning of the future that was near to happen. You see, in voodoo, when a spirit makes its presence known, you have to do whatever it is they say. Those were the first words of wisdom I ever remember my grandmother telling me. If a spirit were ever to communicate with you, it is because they are trying to warn you, and what that poor dead girl said to me was a warning if I ever did hear one. Without questioning the dead girl's words of warning, I quickly and quietly get my things together before a single member of the band can wake from their slumber. I cat-paw my way to the door, and once I was out of there, I run like hell, and I never saw Sand Wolf or Yell ever again, ever since that night of October, 1985. Not once did a day go by that I didn't ask myself what the hell happened to that girl. How did she die the way she did? And what did it have to do with the band? I know what y'all are thinking, right? Adele Ice. Those boys were clearly werewolves and they killed that poor girl. Well, that's what I thought. I mean, why else would they have yellow eyes and howl like coyotes during each concert? There's just one slight problem. During the night of the concert, I specifically remember it being a full moon that night, and yet not a single one of those boys turned into monsters. Oh! And I'm pretty sure Lung Snake's nipple rings were made of pure silver. Well, if those boys weren't werewolves, then what the hell were they? Story 9. We broke into an abandoned office park. Now my missing friend won't stop texting me. I'm typing this in my room with the blinds open and every light on, and it still feels like the dark in here is thicker than it should be. My friend's face is stuck in the last frame of a video I can't make myself delete. If you live near Fairview, you've probably heard of Parkland Corporate Center. It's a half-finished office park off I-27, just past the shuttered Shell station, and the dark staple sign near the Tractor Supply. 3 buildings, 2 stories each, all glass and concrete, in a crooked view around a parking lot that's slowly turning back into a field. The sign by the road still says, Parkland Corporate Center Leasing Inquiries. 555-0189. I called that number once on a dare. It plays a recorded voice that says, a leasing agent will be availed, and then just cuts out. No beep, no menu, nothing. It's been like that for years. They started building Parkland before the 2008 crash and just stopped. The county threw up a sagging chain across the entrance and an NO trespassing sign on one post. That's the extent of security. Everyone just calls it Parkland. Everyone says not to go there at night. We went anyway. There were 3 of us, me, Caleb, Mason, and Tyler. We're not urban explorer, people with channels, or merch. We're just idiots who get bored and decide that driving to empty places with flashlights beats another night of yelling at each other in Discord. We've been to Parkland twice before, both times in the afternoon. Creepy, yeah, but bearable with sunlight coming through glass and traffic noise drifting in from the highway. This time was different. Mason brought it up at lunch. He dropped his tray down across from me and Tyler, grinning the way he does when he knows he's about to say something dumb, and try to sell it as fun. Night run, he said. Parkland. Tonight. Tyler poked at his fries. We already did Parkland, he said. It was just carpet and sad office chairs. At 3 in the afternoon, Mason said. You know how many jump scares happen at 3 in the afternoon? 0. You've got to see it in the dark. He talks with his hands, like he's always mid-story. Teachers like him even when he's late. He gets away with stuff. My mom's on closing shift at Kroger tonight. I said, she won't be home until 11. If I text her that I'm at your house, she won't check. Tyler looked between us for a second. My parents are on nights. Again, he said. I just have to be home before school. But we stick together this time. No leaving anybody in creepy bathrooms. I'm not playing that game again. Mason put a hand over his heart. Scout's honor. I was never a scout, but still. We met up in my driveway around 9. October air. Cold enough to see your breath if you exhaled hard. Street was quiet except for one dog barking down the block. Mason Civic is an '09 silver with a crack in the windshield. He hides under a parking permit. There's an eye brake for nobody sticker peeling off his bumper that he thinks is way funnier than it is. Tyler got in the front with this big black mag light between his knees. I took the back. You bring your light? Mason asked me, backing out. Yeah, I said, tapping my pocket. Little LED on my keys. You bring bolt cutters? He snorted. You think I have bolt cutter money? Nah, chain's low. I checked. I believe him. Because that's the kind of thing he actually does. We rolled past closed Starbucks and the 24-hour CVS on Maple, then hit the on-ramp. The radio was down low, someone talking about used trucks. I watched the green exit signs go by. 25, 26, 27. Mason took exit 27, instead of heading right toward the strip with Tractor Supply and the empty Staples. He turned left, down the darker road that passes fields and one lonely sodium streetlight humming like a bug zapper. Ty, you know people say someone died out there, right? He said. Because of course he did. People say someone died everywhere. Tyler said, not looking up at his phone. There's probably a guy on Reddit right now writing. I worked the graveyard shift at CVS. The pills weren't the scariest thing. He'd get like 5,000 upvotes. I said. We laughed. It came out thin. The Parkland sign appeared on the right, half covered by branches. Our headlights lit the blue logo and the dead number. Then it slid by, and we turned in at the next gap. The road changed under us as soon as we left the highway's shoulder. Smooth asphalt became cracked pavement with grass spearing through. The chain across the entrance sagged between 2 concrete posts, a rusted padlock hanging from one side like an earring. Security theater, Mason said. He stopped, got out, and lifted the chain. It scraped across the hood. I ducked even though I was inside. A little higher, I said. Yeah. He eased the car under. Once we were past, he dropped the chain behind us. It clanged off the bumper and settled somewhere in the weeds. The lot swallowed us up. It was darker in there than I expected. The trees along the road blocked most of the town glow. So once you're inside, it's just our headlights and black glass and concrete. Building it was straight ahead. B and C angled off. making that crooked U. Their fronts were mostly glass, some of it smashed. Graffiti covered the doors and lower panels. White tags, silver crowns, and a few detailed red things that looked like someone had practiced drawing organs. Mason killed the headlights, but let the engine idle for a second. The world outside the car turned into shapes and reflections. No turning them back on and flooring it just to freak us out, Tyler said, preemptively. I'm saving the battery, Mason said. After a beat, he shut the engine off. The ticking of the cooling engine sounded too loud. Ty clicked on the mag light. The beam cut across the lot, cracked parking lines, strong grass, Building A's front steps. The glass doors had aluminum push bars. One pane was cracked through, the other intact but buried under spray paint. 15 minutes, Tyler said. In and out. We drove all the way out here for 15 minutes. Mason said. It was boring in the day, Tyler said. We're not camping inside. 20, Mason tried. 17, I said. Split it. He rolled his eyes. 17 minutes of terror. Let's go. I was the last one out. When the dome light clicked off, the dark pushed in immediately. Tyler swung the mag light up toward the front of the building and caught something in a second floor window. I stopped walking. What? He asked. I thought I saw somebody up there, I said, pointing at the far right window. All three of us looked up. Just our stretched reflections looked back. 3 figures in the white beam, the Civic behind us. Maybe don't start with that, Mason said. But he checked the window one more time before turning away. He pulled one of the glass doors. It creaked but opened. No alarm, no emergency lights. Just a dead lobby smell. Inside, the air was thicker. Damp carpet, old dust, something sour underneath, like maybe a drain had been backing up somewhere for a decade. There was a fake fern in the corner, its leaves gray under a skin of dust. A reception desk sat with its monitors smashed in. Our footsteps echoed up into the second floor. Kill the light for a sec, Mason said. Tyler did. Instant difference. Without the beam, you notice how little ambient light is actually getting in. Just a faint glow from the glass behind us, and some ghost rectangles where windows must be upstairs. The building had its own little noises. A drip somewhere, a distant crack. Okay, no, Tyler said, snapping the mag light back on. The beam jumped, and that's when we noticed the white powder on the floor near the base of the stairs. Someone had emptied a fire extinguisher across the tiles since we'd last been here. A dusting of white spread in a fan shape. Footprints went straight through it. I don't know how we missed them at first. Once you see them, they're all you see. They were long, too long, narrow-heeled, deep arch, and at the front were thick ovals, each one ending in a deeper pit like something had dug in. Dog, I said, even though I knew better. Dogs have 5 toes and pads, Tyler said quietly, and their tracks don't look like they've been punched in. Fake shoe, Mason said. He crouched, smeared a little of the powder away with the back of his fingers. The dust moved. The depth of the indent didn't. Like some idiot made a monster boot to freak people out. Then why walk in a straight line and peace out? Tyler asked. He was right. The prints came from the doors, clean through the powder, and headed toward the elevator lobby and the stairs. No wandering, no pacing. They disappeared where the light fell off. Up, Mason said. We're sticking together. Tyler reminded him. We are, Mason said. We just stick together upstairs and then stick together out. I don't love the idea of walking back across that. He wasn't wrong. I didn't want to be between those prints and the only exit either. We went up. The second floor always felt like time had stopped mid-sentence. Downstairs was empty space. Up here, it felt like everyone had just stood up and walked away at once. Desks, some with family photos face down under a fuzz of dust. Swivel chairs. A few rolled out into the middle of the floor, like someone had pushed away from their computer too hard. White barred with half-erased bullet points. Q3 targets, client pushback, onboarding. The calendar by the stairwell stopped at August 2009. Tuesday the 18th was circled. A dry erase marker lay on the whiteboard's metal tray. Cap off, tip dried to nothing. Someone had drawn a smiley face next to the word team. Tyler's beam slid over all of that, then down to the carpet. The prints were up here too. Same long, four-toed shape pressed into the old gray fibers, marching down the main hall. The air had that attic heaviness, like dust had a weight now. We passed an office with a nameplate. C. Burton, HR. Inside, a mug that said World's Okayest Boss was on its side. Something green and furry blooming out of it. There was a safety first, 1,234 days without incident poster on the wall. Somebody had written liars across it in ballpoint pen. You ever think about how nobody came back for their mugs? Tyler said quietly. Were there pictures? They probably boxed it all up one day and dumped in storage. Mason said. He sounded like he was repeating something he'd read online. We were stalling. The prints kept going. The hallway narrowed as we turned a corner. Ceiling lower, exit signs hanging dead and crooked. The emergency stairs were at the end. Red metal door, narrow glass window. In daylight, it had just been a door. Now it felt like a closed throat. Tyler swung the mag light down the hall and stopped. Something was in front of the door. At first, it was just a vertical strip of darker dark, like a piece of the hallway had thickened. Tall, hunched a little. For a second, I thought it might be some abandoned coat rack or a plant we never noticed. Then it shifted its weight. Not much, just enough that the beam picked up the side of something pale. Tyler inhaled sharply and snapped the light toward it. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Just a door and the dust. Tell me you saw that, he whispered. Yeah, I said. Mason stared down at the door. Glass, he said, more to himself than to us. Reflection. Look. We walked a few more steps. The prints led right up to the push bar, then doubled back, like whatever made them had stood there a while, and then decided to go elsewhere. The glass showed us the way glass is supposed to. 3 pale faces, 1 bright circle of light. We watched ourselves for a few seconds. Something hit the door from the other side. Not full force. Just a sharp thump that made the metal shudder and the push bar rattle. Tyler jumped back into me. The beam flared across the ceiling. What was that? He asked. His voice had gone thin. Wind on the stairs. Mason said immediately, which didn't explain anything. Or something fell. The second hit was harder. The hollow clang rattled through the frame. Then I heard it. A sound right against the glass, muffled but close. Not words. Just a slow, heavy exhale. The kind you can feel in your own throat when someone does it near your ear. We didn't stand there debating. Mason grabbed Tyler's sleeve. Back down, he said. Now. We went back the way we came. Way faster. The hall felt longer. The cone of light shook and picked out details we'd missed. An office chair turned perfectly to face the door. A phone receiver dangling off a desk. A brown handprint-shaped stain low on the wall that I hope was coffee and will never know for sure. Halfway to the stairs, the mag light beam hit a doorway. There was a small office inside. Bare desk, rolling chair, file cabinet with 1 drawer half open. Something was behind the door. I didn't see all of it, just enough through the gap to know it wasn't a trick of light. For long fingers wrapped around the wood, pressing into it. They flexed once, smooth, no hesitation, and slipped back out of sight. My feet stopped by themselves. Caleb, Tyler hissed. Move. I did. I didn't look back in. At the stairs. I almost expected the powder to be exactly the same. It wasn't. The original prints were still there, but now there were more. Newer. Edges clearer. They led from the lobby toward the stairwell, overlapped some of our shoe marks, and stopped on the lowest step, just to the left of where my foot came down. We all froze. The surface of the powder shifted. Not from us. We hadn't moved. A thin line appeared in the dust, like something invisible dragging a fingertip through it. It curved, looped, and straightened. Letters. Not neat, but readable. Oh, Tyler made a noise that was half laugh, half whimper. Okay, Mason said. His voice was too loud in the stairwell. Nope. Fine. Upstairs. Window. We are not walking through that lobby. The mag light flickered. Once. Twice. Then it cut out completely. Everything went black. No slow fade. Just there 1 second. gone the next. I heard Tyler slam the flashlight against the railing. Come on, come on. No light. My fingers were already on my phone. I mashed the side button. The screen lit up in my face, bluish and harsh. Battery, 14%. I know it had been over 60% when we parked. I check my battery all the time. It's a habit. Up, Mason said. The dragging sound from the lobby came again. Closer now, wet and steady. Go. We went up. Back on the second floor. My phone turned the hallway into a narrow, jittery tunnel. Beyond it, everything was just shape and suggestion. Conference room, Tyler said. Big window, faces a lot. We can jump. We joked about that window the last time we were here. Emergency exit if the elevator ghosts get mad, Mason had said. It hadn't been funny then either. I kept the phone angled down toward our feet. I didn't want to see what might be standing ahead of us, until I had to. We passed more offices. My light caught on little things. The blinking red LED on an emergency exit sign that somehow still had power. A pen stuck point first into a corkboard. A ring of something crusted on the carpet, like a cup had been dropped there and never cleaned up. Something moved behind one of the glass walls at the edge of the light. I saw it in my peripheral vision and refused to turn my head. If I didn't get my full attention, part of me could pretend it wasn't there. The conference room door was half open. Tyler shoved it in, and we crowded inside. Long table, 12 chairs. Whiteboard with pipeline and strategy ghosts still faintly there. A dry marker lay on the tray, drowned in gray dust. The window filled almost the whole far wall. From here, the parking lot looked flat and small. The Civic was a dark chunk in the darkness. The chain at the entrance was a faint line. For about half a second, that view helped. Then the dragging sound out in the hall scraped a little closer. Mason went to the window. There was a latch at the top. He worked it loose and pushed. The glass moved outward a few inches and stopped against some ancient limiter. Of course, he muttered. Break it, Tyler said. Mason dragged one of the chairs over, metal legs screeching on the floor. Stand back. He swung the chair into the glass. The boom made my ears ring. Cracks spotted out, but the pain held. Again, Tyler said. He kept looking back at the door. The dragging outside paused, then started again, slower. On the third hit, the glass gave. It blew outward in a shower of shards. Some fell in, some fell out. Cold air rushed in, tasting like wet weeds, asphalt, and something metal. Mason kicked at the remaining jagged pieces, knocking them loose. Tiny fragments tinkled down to the bushes below. Feet first, he said. Story and a half. Bend your knees. I'll go first. My phone buzzed in my hand. A banner flashed at the top. New voicemail, unknown. I stuffed the phone into my hoodie pocket. Mason climbed onto the sill, one leg out. He looked back at us once. His pupils were huge. Don't look down, Tyler said. Already did, Mason said, and went. The bushes rustled. I'm good. Go. Tyler climbed up next. If I break my ankle, he started, then just dropped. There was a thump and a muted, "Ow, I'm fine. Caleb." The scraping outside the conference room door stopped. I didn't look at it. I hauled myself up onto the sill. Broken glass scratched my shin. I felt warmth spread under my jeans, but there was no time to care. My phone vibrated again as I pushed off. Branches hit my sides, then ground. I rolled, came up and saw the Civic. Run. Mason yelled. We ran. We tore across the lot, tripping, pushing off each other, not even pretending to be coordinated. Gravel slid out under my shoes. The air felt too cold in my throat. Something hit the building behind us. A deep impact. Dust puffed off the top edge of the wall. Another hit followed, lower down, closer. Tyler reached the car first and yanked the back door open. We piled in. Mason nearly dropped the keys, but got them in ignition. The engine coughed and then roared. Headlights flared on. They swept across Building A, across the broken second-floor window. For one long second, I saw fingers hooked over cracked frame from inside. 4 of them, gray-white, too long, joints bent in ways they shouldn't bend. They tightened as the light hit them. A face leaned into the light behind them, eyes with no pupils, just cloudy white, skin that looked thin and stretched, a mouth that opened too far, full of teeth that didn't match each other, like they'd been stolen from different jaws. Then the car whipped around. The headlights swung away, and it was gone. Mason slammed it into reverse, backed up in a wide arc that nearly took us into a light pole, then dropped into drive and headed for chain. He didn't slow. The chain snapped off one post, smacked the hood, and flipped out of the way. We hit the smoother road, and nobody talked for a solid minute. The radio was still on, some commercial about tires leaking into the silence like it belonged to another universe. "Did you guys see?" Tyler started. "Nope," Mason said fast. "Saw nothing. We're never going there again." "You saw it," Tyler said. "Turned to look at me." "Right. Yeah," I said. There wasn't any point in pretending. I saw something. We dropped Tyler off on Maple. His porch light is the really bright motion one his dad installed after the mailbox smashing thing 2 years ago. It made his front yard look like a set for a local commercial. "You gonna tell them?" I asked, nodding toward his house. "And say what?" he asked. "That we trespassed and got chased by whatever that was. My dad would kill me before the monster got a chance." He tried to smile. It didn't land properly. "If you get anything weird," he said, "texts, calls. I don't care what time it is. Call me." "Same," I said. Mason just tapped the steering wheel. We waited until his front door opened and closed behind him. Then Mason took me home. "You sleeping?" he asked as we turned onto my street. "I'll pretend to," I said. "Yeah," he said. "Same." He stopped at my curb. I got out, leaning back in for a second. "We're not going back there," I said. "For once, I agree with you," he said. I shut the door. Walking up my driveway, I noticed white dust on my shoelaces. I caught myself about to scrape them off on the grass, then didn't. I don't know why. It felt like admitting something. Inside, I locked the deadbolt and slid the chain on. Mom was already in bed. I could hear the low hum of her fan upstairs. In my room, I finally looked at my phone. There was a notification I'd missed while we were running. New voicemail, unknown caller, 10:42 p.m. The timestamp meant it had hit while we were still inside Parkland. I sat on the edge of my bed and hit play. Static, low and constant. Under it, something like wet fabric being pulled across tile. Then my own voice, distorted but definitely me. "Run, Caleb." Hearing your own name in your own voice, coming from somewhere you didn't speak, is a special kind of wrong. The message cut off after 13 seconds. I didn't play it again. I saved it, put the phone face down on my desk, and went to the bathroom to clean the cut on my leg. The soap smelled like cheap hotel bars. White dust from Parkland flaked off my jeans onto the tile. I kicked it into the corner by the plunger. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't, but my brain tapped out anyway, and I slept. Waking up was worse. My alarm ripped me out of some blurry nightmare about an elevator that wouldn't stop. For a second, staring at my ceiling, I was just tired and annoyed. Then everything crashed back. The cut on my leg stung when I swung out of bed. There was a smear of pale dust on my pillowcase where my hoodie sleeve had been. My phone was on my nightstand. Battery, 93%. There were 4 notifications. 2 were from school and some group chat. The other 2 were from Tyler. Both were timestamped 3:14 a.m. I opened the thread. First message, a photo. It looked black at first glance. I cranked the brightness and tilted the screen. A hallway came into view. Not exactly Parkland, but close enough that my stomach clenched. Narrow, grimy, fluorescent light at the far end, flickering. The floor was streaked with something dark and wet, reflecting that bad light in dull lines. On the right side of the frame, close to the camera, a pale shape was pressed against the wall. An arm, too long, the joint bent wrong. For fingers spread flat, the tips ending in curve, dark nails dug into the paint. Second message, text, "It knows your name." My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I hit call instead. It rang twice, then the canned voice. The wireless customer you're trying to reach is unavailable. I hung up, tried again. Same thing. I went downstairs. Mom was in the kitchen, hair damp, pouring coffee into her travel mug. You look rough, she said. You and Mason stay up all night? Tyler texted me something like 3. I said, some weird picture. I thought it was a joke. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it. Her face went tight. Oh, God, she said quietly. What? I asked. It's a message from the school, she said. They're saying one of your classmates is missing. She looked at the screen. A boy named Tyler Jameson. The room tilted. Missing how? I asked. It just says he didn't come home last night, and his parents reported it, she said. They want anyone who saw him after school to contact the police. We walked around town. I heard myself say, me, him, and Mason, but Mason dropped him off. I saw him go up to his porch. I did not say the word parkland. If the police come by, you tell them everything, she said. I don't care if you get in trouble for being somewhere you aren't supposed to be. Understand? My phone buzzed in my hand. New text from Tyler. Come back. A second one hit right after. Bring him. It came with a photo. I opened it. This one was brighter. The flash had gone off. The picture was blown out in the middle. It showed pieces. That's the only way I can describe it. Torn strips of skinless meat piled wrong. On a floor I couldn't completely place. Muscle and fat, white bone glimpses. Nothing where it should be. You know when puzzle pieces almost fit. But don't. It looked like that, but with a person. Near the top right corner, there was a scrap of dark blue fabric with white stitching. Tyler's hoodie had looked exactly like that when he got out of the Civic. At the very bottom edge of the photo, almost cut off, 4 gray fingers curled into view, just the tips. While I was staring, my battery dropped from 93% to 68%. My hand shook. Coffee sloshed out of Mom's mug onto the counter. What is it? She asked. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. New text. Answer the door. The door? I said out loud before my brain caught up. The doorbell rang. Mom frowned. They must be going house to house, she said. Stay here, okay? Wait, I started, but she was already heading down the hall. I heard the deadbolt slide. The chain rattled. The door opened. Voices filtered in. 2 male, 1 female. Serious, low. Good morning, Ms. Dorn. A man said, sorry to wake you. We're following up about your son's friend, Tyler Jameson. Yes, of course, come in, Mom said. She called my name. It felt like my feet belonged to someone else. But they carried me down the hall anyway. 2 officers stood in the entryway. 1 tall with tired eyes, 1 shorter. A woman in plain clothes with a badge on her belt stood behind them. Morning, Caleb, the taller one said. I'm Officer Reyes. This is Officer Nolan. This is Detective Sue. We're trying to piece together where Tyler was last seen. He had a clipboard with papers clipped over one of my school photos. Your mom says you were with him after school, Sue said. Her voice wasn't unkind, but there was no room in it. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Yeah, I said. We just hung out, drove around. Where? Nolan asked. Maple, Broad. Near the shell, I said. We didn't go far. It was a half-truth, the worst kind. What time did you last see him? Reyes asked. Around 10, I said. A little after. Mason dropped him off, and I watched him walk up to his porch. Did he say he was going anywhere else? Sue asked. No, I said. He just said he had to be home before midnight. His parents are strict. My phone buzzed in my hand again. A banner flashed at the top. We can hear you. The preview vanished as quickly as it appeared. Would you mind if we look at your text with him from last night? Reyes asked. It helps us get a timeline. I thought about saying no. Saying my phone was dead. Saying I'd left it upstairs. I unlocked it instead, opened the thread, and scrolled up past the worst of it so that memes and homework questions were at the top, then handed it over. He read silently, lips moving a little. I watched his face go from neutral to mildly amused at some stupid meme. back to neutral when he hit the 3:14 a.m. photo. His eyebrows pulled in. "What's this?" he asked, angling it so Detective Sue could see. "I woke up and saw it," I said. "I thought it was from some horror site. I was going to text him and ask what it was, but then Mom got the school alert and you guys showed up." Reyes zoomed in, zoomed back out, passed the phone to Sue. "Looks like fake gore," she said after a glance. "Plenty of that online. Kids send each other that kind of thing," Nolan said, almost himself. "Shock pictures, part of the culture." None of them were seeing what I was seeing. Or if they were choosing to file it under prank. Reyes scrolled down. He stopped just before the comeback and bring him text and handed the phone back. "Did you receive anything after this?" Sue asked. "Those two you didn't get to," I said. "While you were here, I haven't really read them." "Don't delete any of it," Reyes said. He took a card from his pocket and held it out. "If you get anything else from this number, or related to Tyler at all, call this right away, even if it seems dumb, okay?" "Okay," I said. They asked more questions. Did Tyler seem upset? Was he fighting with anyone? Did he talk about running away? I said no until the words sounded wrong. They left eventually. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Mom turned to me. "If there's anything you didn't tell them because you were scared you'd get in trouble." "I know," I said. She went back to the kitchen, already calling her manager on speaker. I stood in the hall. My phone buzzed. New text from Tyler. "We're close." The battery dropped from 68% to 39% as I watched. There was another photo attached. I took it to my room before I opened it. I don't know why that mattered, but it did. On my bed, with the door half shut, I looked. The picture was of my street, taken from low to the ground, like whoever took it was crouching or lying in the middle of the road. The angle made the houses lean in a bit. You could see the maple tree in our yard, the cracked sidewalk with the uneven patch where the city painted over some old graffiti a couple summers ago. The Honda my neighbor always parks halfway across the line. And my house, my bedroom window. The curtains were open. You could see a figure sitting on the bed inside, head bent over a phone. Me. The timestamp said it had been taken less than a minute before I opened it. I hadn't left my room. The text under it said, "Don't make us ask again." The chips I had grabbed from the kitchen slipped out of my lap and spilled across the floor. Battery, 21%. I called Mason. It went straight to voicemail. His greeting was a dumb old one. "Hey, it's Mason. If I don't call you back, it's because I don't like you. Kidding. Maybe." I hung up, texted him. "Pick up. It's about Tyler. About Parkland." No reply. Mom knocked on my door. "They've got something about Tyler on Channel 7, she said through it. "If you want to..." "I've got homework," I said too fast. She hesitated. "Okay, I'll call you if they say anything important." The TV clicked on downstairs. Bits of the news filtered up through the floor. Last seen by friends. Dark blue hoodie, urging anyone with information. My phone buzzed again. New text from Tyler. "Last chance. 15 minutes. It came with a video. I told myself I wouldn't open it. I did. It started in motion and blur. Gray walls, jerky movements. The camera stabilized just enough to make me wish it hadn't. The angle was low, pointed down the upper hallway of Building A. I'd know that T-junction anywhere now. Conference room door on the right, red emergency exit at the end. No lights except a smear of gray from the broken window. Tyler stood in the hallway, maybe 20 feet away, facing the camera. His hoodie was shredded and hanging in strips. There were dark stains all over his chest and arms. His stance was wrong, too stiff, like he was being held up by strings that didn't quite understand how joints worked. He raised one hand. It shook like it was heavy. He beckoned. "Caleb," he said. It was his voice and not his voice, like someone had recorded him through an aquarium pump, wet and burbling. But I could hear his cadence underneath the distortion. The camera shifted. There was a scrape behind it, like fingernails along drywall. Tyler's eyes flicked past the lens to whatever was behind it. For a second, pure terror pushed through whatever else had hold of him. "Don't," he said quickly. The video blurred. The camera spun. For a fraction of a second, the frame caught something tall and joined it crowding the left side of the hall. Too close, too much limb for the space. Then the image smeared into gray blocks, like a file corrupting. The last clear frame was Tyler's face. Too close. His mouth opened too wide. I was not looking at the camera, but at something behind it, or behind me. It's hard to explain. The video ended. The progress bar said 009. Battery, 9%. I tried to save the video to send it to Reyes. A little spinning circle appeared, then an error. File not found. The entire message thread blinked. Every bubble turned into an empty outline, then popped back in, all except the video. It was just gone. No, failed to download. No placeholder. Like it had never been there. The last text in the thread now was, "We're not done yet." My voicemail icon lit again. One new message. Unknown caller, 7:22 a.m. I haven't played that one. Not yet. I know what I'm supposed to do. Call Reyes. Show him the photos I still have. Hand him my phone. Admit we lied about Parkland. Deal with whatever comes after. I'm going to. But I wanted this written somewhere else first. Somewhere that isn't just my phone. I watched my phone chew up a video and spit out an error message. I don't trust it. I also wanted to warn anyone near here who thinks Parkland is just another creepy abandoned spot to film TikToks in. Something in that building walks around on four-toed feet and spells words in extinguisher dust. It knows how to use a phone number that belongs to a kid whose parents are probably standing in his empty room right now. It can show you your own street from angles nobody's standing at. It can send you your own voice. It told us NO when we tried to go back through the lobby. I keep thinking about that. I don't know if it meant no, you can't leave, or no, don't go that way. Either way, we didn't listen. We punched a window and jumped. If you've been out there and you've still got white powder on your shoes or glass dust in your hoodie, pay attention to your notifications tonight. If you see something from a number that should be off, or from a friend who's missing, or with a picture where you are right now taken from somewhere you aren't, don't open it. Or do, and then call someone immediately, not just your group chat. My battery says 5% even though it's been plugged into the wall since I started typing this. The charging icon keeps flicking on and off. Someone just rang the doorbell again. Mom thinks it's a neighbor bringing food, or the cops coming back with more questions. The last text I got, one I haven't opened yet, just popped up on my lock screen from Tyler. Answer the door. Story 10. Nails on a wall. I'm standing in the makeshift storage room in the sub-basement. I know Fred is going to offer me my own office soon. This room will do. There's a black and white photo in a gold frame on the wall of a woman. She is sitting upright, clearly a tall woman, sitting on a blanket in a field, the antique frame hanging from a floor nail jammed into the wall and painted over. As I was admiring the photograph, a woman walked in. She glanced at the photo, kissed her hand, touched the picture, then her heart. "Oh, gee, you poor thing. You didn't deserve this," before swiftly walking out of the room. The expression on her face was of deep sadness. She said gee like it was a person's name. Odd. Anyway, the room is perfect and has ample sunlight during the day and very spacious. Fingers crossed Fred allows me to have this room. There's another door in here, a big metal door behind stacks of boxes. I'm meeting Reg at the cantina after work. Maybe he knows what is behind there. Thursday, October 16th. My boss confirmed I was getting my own office. I've been with the company for 5 years and have been very patient, not to mention the lead draftsperson for 2 years. I was offered one of 2 rooms. The first one on the main floor was too small and had no window. The second was the empty room in the sub-basement. Currently a storage room of sorts for all the oddball stuff from the building, which was soon to be relocated. The move began immediately. My boss traveled a lot and gave me assignments while on the road. The rest of the staff were tolerable but chatty Cathys, or other aspiring draftspersons who just wanted to be left alone and work. Like me, these guys looked up to me since it seemed I was the only person Fred didn't yell at. I moved into the downstairs room after he departed for a business trip. 2 weeks before Halloween. Without telling any of the other staff, just me, Reggie will clear that room out for you. Fred said to me before he left. He'd be back for the party, though. He loves those parties. I love those parties, now that I'm in charge. I set about arranging my office and told the other staff to just relax. The cat is away. Let the mice play. My new lair, as I called it, was on the far end of the building, a good distance away from all the maintenance stuff, boilers, etc., normal stuff you'd find in a commercial building. Looking at the wall across from that desk, the only furniture that remained, I could tell that half of this building was constructed many years ago, many more years than I thought. The new offices upstairs and parking garage were attached to the old building 7 years ago. You couldn't tell from the front of the building, but half of the interior was already a permanent structure over 100 years old, just one long brick warehouse, with tiny little windows that were mostly broken or covered over with more brick. Conveniently, it was a short flight upstairs to the main printing room where I spent part of every day. There was literally nothing on the walls except that small, framed photo of the woman, sitting down on the picnic blanket. The woman was very attractive, even in the discolored photo. On the back of the frame was written in faded ink, GFS, July 2nd, 1934. The only person I'd see regularly on the sub-basement floor was Reggie, our custodian and my right-hand man. Sharing beers with Reggie at the local pub, the Cantina, on Fridays was a regular thing. We were mates before we started working here, actually. The Cantina is where I met him, and Angie, hey Reg, I'm moving my stuff in here today, new office. IT is coming later. Brother, what is behind this door? I asked, pointing toward the corner of the room. Reggie and I moved some boxes out of the way and stared at it. A small placard with the letters HHH was adhered to the bottom corner. I don't know. In face, I never knew this was here. Yo, let's open this mother, he said. I could tell he was as excited as I was. He paused for a moment to look at the locking mechanism. Thinking, Reggie scratched his chin and reached into his bag for his key collection. The door looked like a bank vault. It was made of thick metal, remarkable, well-preserved after years of non-exposure down here in this dark, musty room. A small placard redubbed HHHST 1928 was adhered to the bottom corner. It had a large lever-style doorknob and an old-fashioned numerical lock above it that was clearly broken. It wouldn't turn. It just fell off when we touched it, but it did leave a small hole into the unknown behind it, as a backup, I guess. It had a keyhole above the numerical lock. What's in here? I asked again, now slightly annoyed, yet still curious. If this is going to be my office, I want to know what's in here. I knew Reggie would know, but I asked aloud anyway. You got me. Let me see if one of these old keys work. He tried every old key he had in his maintenance closet. We tried every tool he had, but to no success. Exasperated, Reggie asked, Are we having a brewski at the Cantina? You're buying me a beer for this. Yeah, man. Let's go. We grabbed our stuff and headed out. Disappointed, yet comfortable with the knowledge it's just an old door. It hasn't been touched in decades. Maybe I'll just knock the fucking door down. Tuesday, October 28th. There was really no work to do today, so I tried to open the vault door again. But this time I tried using different tools. A sledgehammer and crowbar. The broken off numerical lock allowed access to the inside through a small hole, just big enough for the crowbar. To my surprise, it opened, making a creepy, squeaky sound, like fingernails on a chalkboard. It was dark inside. The decades-old light switch did not work, of course, but I could see a very large safe along the wall with the office light. Does anyone know what's here? What is in it? My mind raced. Now my curiosity has reached peak level. I need to know what's in there. I grabbed my coat, now hanging on the old nail where the photo frame once hanged. I gotta get Reggie down here now that I figured out how to open it. I pushed the door shut to test it first, though. The heavy metal door slowly closed with a very distinctive wadathon. That sound raised the hair on the back of my neck. Once you hear it, you don't forget it. I shut off the light, wondering, where did the picture frame go? Wednesday, October 29th. During lunch break, a few of the chatty Cathys were discussing the upcoming Halloween party. Their costumes, The men in the office they liked. How about one of us dresses up as G? A lady in a paisley top suggested during a moment of silence, raising her eyebrows while she said it. Oh, God, that's just asking for an attachment. Angie replied. Angie is our front desk receptionist, our friend and self-proclaimed resident paranormal expert. She told me this place is haunted, but I don't believe that shit. I was curious. I had to interrupt. Excuse me, what's an attachment? Don't you know who Grace's heir was? The paisley top woman asked. I think her name is Helen. No. Grace used to work here when this building was an old warehouse, early 1930s. She died here. Grace got trapped in the downstairs vault before Christmas break. Nobody was here to hear her cries for help. She had no family to look for her. She continued, from what I know, she was a single woman. Nobody even knew she was missing until they came back in the new year. Very tragic. The building shuttered its doors not long after that. I'm surprised I never heard this before. That vault downstairs at the end of the building? I believe so. I don't go down there, though. But I'm glad it's your office now, and no longer a supply closet that I won't go into alone. You're full of shit, Helen, someone said, laughing. I'm glad I wasn't the only one. Helen continued. Angie here said she's seen her. Ain't that right, Angie? I'm not sure. Angie replied hesitantly, looking pale. Her usual chipper demeanor now flattened. One day I was getting supplies down there, and when I turned to leave, I saw a tall woman standing there. She was wearing an old outfit and a puffy purple hat. It was just for a second. She turned and left, so I followed her out of the office. But there was nobody there. I haven't gone down there since. Angie got up and went back to her desk, her hands shaking a little. I think you're all pulling my chain. I said, not believing a word. Halloween was in the air. Ghost stories abound. So, an attachment is when a ghost follows you home, I imagine? I asked. Yes, exactly. Helen said with a straight face. Maybe they did believe this stuff. Get the hell out of here. I said, brushing it off. So what is your costume this year? I interjected to change the subject. The remaining group seemed pleased with this too. Thursday, October 30th. I set up my computer terminal and large HP printer. The oversized printers were upstairs. I put it in front of the metal door. It was on wheels, so I just turned it 90 degrees when I wanted to explore the mystery room. Yo, Reg, come down here when you can. I got the door open. I texted him, while on my hands and knees, feeding cable into the wall. I noticed a sizable piece of what appeared to be a purple press-on nail or some such nail product. I picked it up and threw it towards a trash can, but missing the nail now in the corner somewhere. Yuck. I thought. Reggie then walked in with a flashlight. Let's check it out, brother. Again, the squeaky door noise from Hades startled us. Reggie turned on the flashlight. There was so much dust in the air, we couldn't see much except the large safe. We explored what we could see. Reggie's tool bag propping the door open. We learned early, thankfully, that the door is basically impossible to open from the inside of the vault door. To prevent getting locked in, I tied a rope from the desk, leg to the lever, as a precaution. There are a date and initial scratched onto the safe. GFS, December 31st, 1934. Happy New Year. The same initials scrawled on the back of the gold-framed photo. The rest of the day was spent trying to figure out what all this meant. But with not much work to do, people are telling each other ghost stories and listening to Thriller. I love Halloween. As I was packing up, a uniquely dressed woman with red hair and long red nails. And in my office, she was pretty and pale, very striking. I mumbled a quick hello and left. I get nervous around attractive women. I left my office door open as there were still supplies in there. Plus, I just wanted to get home. The woman seemed familiar. I feel like I've seen her before, but I can't remember where. As I ascended the stairs, I heard the faint but familiar squeaking sound of the door. I quickened my pace to my car. Friday morning, Halloween 10.31. Hey, Fred, where did the picture frame go from downstairs? I asked my boss. Oh, I didn't think you'd want that there. Eileen at the front desk has it, he said before diving back into his work. We didn't want to finish up a project before the party, and I was already finished my portion. I asked Eileen for photo frame. She stared at me for an uncomfortably long time, then pulled out her drawer. You really want this? I do. I'm not sure why, but I felt it belonged back on the old floor nail in my office wall. I couldn't get the nail out anyway. Sure, take it. Halloween night. I saw the woman again at the Halloween party. She was dressed in the same outfit. She paused in front of the punch bowl and said, "Hello. Good to see new faces here. Oh, I've been here for a while. I'm Alex." I put my hand out to shake hers, but she turned and faded into the throng of dancing people and colored lights. But I was intrigued. I put my drink down and looked for Angie. Who was that woman with the red dress and wide-brimmed hat? Long red fingernails? Who? Angie asked, looking puzzled. The woman with the old costume, big purplish hat. I don't know anything about historical dress, but I know it was old. Angie just stared at me blankly as her jaw dropped, her face turning pale. You saw Grace. Angie said, now smiling. I'm thinking the staff may be playing a joke on me now. They weren't too thrilled with me after I placed a life-size display of one of our fashion models' mannequins in the middle of the break room last summer. It scared even me when I turned the floor lights on, temporarily forgetting I put it there. Let's get a drink. I want to hear all about this. Angie pulled me by the arm and beelined the bar. So, what did you see? Tell me. Tell me, Angie implored. I was about to spill all the beans when Fred motioned to the DJ to turn down the music. Fred was about to make an announcement. We had an amazing third quarter. So for the month of December and half of November, everyone will work remotely from home. We'll discuss the details before Thanksgiving break. Well done, everyone. Cheers to an amazing team. He held up his glass to a very pleased office staff. Payroll will come in once every 2 weeks, and HR is always available anytime, myself included, except don't call me on Fridays, he said, laughing. Feel free to come to the office if you need anything, but please let Reggie know first. Okay, spin that music back up. Reggie held up his glass and nodded. I guess his costume is a building custodian? Fucking Reggie. It was one of the best Halloween parties in recent memory. I forgot about the woman in the puffy hat. I even did a few lines of coke with Angie in my office. Want to do a bump? She asked. Let's go, I said as we walked hand in hand downstairs. She picked up the press-on nail that was on the floor next to the trash can. Oh my God, this is old, she said after examining it. What do you mean? I asked. Right here, look. Lavalley. This is an old-fashioned ladies' glue-on nail. Sometime they didn't come off. My grandmother told me once. Angie dropped the nail into the trash can, then pulled out a large bag of shiny white powder from her bra. My eyes widened. I pulled out a large bill and my company credit card. This is probably the first time anyone ever did coke on this old desk. Hell, I even used a gold-framed photo to cut and arrange the lines. I held out a folded $100 bill to Angie. She kissed me on the forehead and did 2 big lines. That second line was for Grace, she said with a giggle and followed me upstairs, look in her eye. I followed after doing my lines and putting the frame back into the desk drawer. I touched the woman's face before shutting the drawer. A sense of guilt spread through me, but Angie beckoned me back upstairs. Come on, silly, she said, rolling her eyes. Wednesday, November 12th. November went by quickly. It is nearly 2 weeks before Thanksgiving break. I am near completion on my end-of-year projects and decided to stay at my home for Thanksgiving instead of flying out this year to visit family. They were a bit disappointed, but they understood, and we agreed to meet on Christmas instead for an extended stay. The last day leading up to the remote work period was so boring, but I kept thinking of all the projects I was going to work on at home in December to keep my spirits up. I was still sad Halloween was over. It flies by every year. Then I remembered the nail. I picked it out of the garbage can and examined it. It appeared to have dried blood on one end, the base. I put the nail into a small plastic bag and into the bottom drawer of the desk next to the framed photo Eileen gave me. I wanted to show the nail to Angie, but sober this time. I texted Reggie to see if he was still around for a final beer before the break, but he had already left. Family stuff to attend to. He wished me a happy holidays, though. I'll be out of town until December. Nobody is going to call me come back here. Enjoy your break, brother, and happy holidays. Likewise, be safe. I replied, I wasn't quite ready to leave. I think I was the last person in the building. As soon as Fred left, most of the staff vanished. I scrolled Facebook for a while before getting up to go at 5 p.m., not returning until next year. I was happy for once. I put my phone down on the desk and put my hands on my face and let out a silent shout. Fuck this place. I'm going home and working on being me. I don't want to see anyone for weeks, even Reggie, as much as I love the guy. I glanced over and noticed the vault door was open, but only slightly. Reggie must have been down here. I picked up the phone to text him and saw another nail. Same color, same manufacturer. This one, however, was jammed into the door frame. I opened the door fully, putting the rope on the desk leg and door lever, then saw the gold-framed photo of Grace on the floor, clearly visible with the office light. I picked it up, blew off the dust, and touched the face of the woman on the photo. I swear I just saw the same photo in the desk drawer. Are there two? Grace. I hear someone say in a whisper, if that is Angie, I'm gonna kill her. My heart rate is skyrocketing now. Figured she would do something like this to rile me up. I knew she liked me. This nail had even more dry blood on it. Behind me, in the darkness, the same darkness I still haven't fully explored, I hear a shuffling sound, like dancing feet. I can hear what I think is I Ain't Got Nobody by Louis Armstrong playing, but barely audible like a war-blind Victrola broadcasting on an AM station from another time. My father played this song when I was a child when I was upset. He would dance around and make funny faces. But as the dust settled, I see a figure maybe 15 feet away. A large, brimmed hat comes into view at the same time as the unsettling, squeaky sound of the metal door side, followed by a water thump